Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant. And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend.
Welcome to Tuesday night, everybody. It's the Golden Guys. I'm going to bring in the fellas right now, just like the Golden Girls, without all the sex appeal. We are here right now in Shady Acres. We've got everybody, including Sam the Butcher, who was never really in that, but we've got Murray from Night Court. We've got everybody here on our Shady Acres show. Very happy to be here. My glasses are off. I will read the chat in a little bit. Thank you all for being here in the chat. We have a great show, a lot of show and tell we're going to be doing. But first, let me introduce everybody. I'm going to go right down over here. How are we doing, DS?
I am great, thank you. Just enjoying, been sitting back sort of watching the comic market and just enjoying the fireworks day to day. It's just a sight to behold. So,
Yes, it has been. I have actually cashed in on a bit. Picked up some stuff that is also very hot right now. We'll talk about that never. But how we doing nights? How you doing, Mike?
Pretty good. Yeah, I've been kind of watching stuff, and yeah, it's been a little crazy. But you know, I feel like there's so much in the marketplace right now. You can find some sneaky little deals here and there if you go for the stuff that's not hogging up all the spotlight. You know.
Exactly.
So,
you got to zig when everybody's zagging.
yeah.
Exactly. Now down this way over here, how's my good buddy there, Jeff and Golden Age Guru? How we doing?
Pretty good, man. Yeah, it's a fun sight to behold with all this stuff going on, and still a lot of potential, man. I'm pretty excited. There's a lot that's just still get into. I'm zigging, I'm zagging, I'm following the crowd, just jumping all in again.
There you go. Welcome. Good to have you back. And also, we got King Louie with us in the far corner over there. How we doing, King Louie?
King Louie, huh?
That's what we're going with.
Hopefully I'm not one of those that get beheaded.
No,
So,
well, we'll call you the 14th. He was okay.
No, all was good. I think, yeah, it's certainly fun watching the market. It's certainly fun. The hobby I think, is vibrant and as active as it's been. And I think as one in the hobby, I can speak to people that I think we're certainly hoping this year we can get to some live cons and see all the books in front of us in person versus virtually, which is always good, but nothing replaces it in person.
Yeah, that's one of my big things I'm going to talk about a little later on. We're going to talk about the first live con that some of us are going to be at. We're going to discuss that. That'll be a lot of fun as well. Thank you for everybody for being in the chat. I'm going to show some books off the bat. I know I'm going to show some art. So Anthony Schneider, I made a deal on some art. I don't have the big piece that's being shipped today, and it's ridiculously huge. So I'll start off Golden Guys with non-gold Golden Age art, but I always share my art on this show first before I go on Bill Cox's show. So I'm going to put myself on the big screen while everybody prepares. First up is a Humberto Ramos, beautiful Thor page from Avengers Initiative here. This is one of my themes I have with Thor pages. If Thor is using his hammer or two Thors on a page, whether it be Jane or anything else, I look for two Thors. This is done really well. It's Thor versus Evil Thor, not the Civil War Thor, but close. Well done, well drawn. Great to get this piece. It's in a Mylar thing until I figure out where it is. I'm going to claim it. I'm going to frame it.
It looks awesome.
It is. It's absolutely looks great in person. Hope it looks great on camera. The pencil work on this rivals some of the best pencil work I have by all the other artists.
Why'd he?
Am I not focused?
How come it's not inked?
You're not focused.
This is a actual lead pencils over blue lines here without the ink, and I'm okay with that because In some cases, I do like the ink. Some cases, I don't. This is done more. This is the first one done where he submitted it, and I got the whole rundown of the page. And luckily, Anthony was able to get me in touch with the artist to figure out what was going on. And you don't see this often. You don't see an actual. Usually, blue lines look rough. This is blue line with pencils over it to show the inking that he wanted. And that's an artist taking control before he hands it off to the other artist.
So then they inked it digitally. Is that the deal?
Correct. Based on what he wanted. Correct.
That's cool.
Is that a tail lights panel of Thor on the bottom corner?
Oh, do we have taillights? We do have taillights.
Oh yeah.
I got this for my kids. This is an original art piece. This is a Henderson did this in 2019 for the movie, and it's the alternate to the DVD cover without the other ones in there. My kids' favorite two characters are Spidey, Gwen, and Miles, and I appreciate that because I'm a big Miles and Gwen fan. So this is going to go in a display outside their room when we get into our new house coming soon, hopefully August, September. This is a great original art piece. I did the framing. But now we're going to get into some Star Wars pieces here. So,
The old for the kids trick.
how I could get more.
I use that all the time.
Exactly. It's great. So
Nice.
a while back, I bought this piece and I framed it. So I showed this piece, had it framed. This is one of my favorite pieces from my favorite movie ever. Let me do my light here. This is the Darth Vader, I'm your father, what's going on? And there are 3 other sister pieces to this. And I got all 3 and I framed them all this weekend, again, from Anthony's comic art. You know Anthony, member of the Golden Guys crew. So I got the other pieces and they all tell different stories. The first one I'm going to show is really kick-ass. The Battle of Hoth.
Love those walkers.
Yep. One of my favorite mechanic device outside of the Millennium Falcon is the AT-AT. It was the toy. I only wrote down one thing for Christmas in 1983, and it was in 1981, and it was the AT-AT when it came out. It did not come out in 80. It came out in 81. It was the only thing I wanted, and I did get it. And my mom tells that story to this day. Oh, she tells that story that my father flipped out, and he says, well, that's what he wants. That's all he's getting for the next 5 years. But that's it. The Battle of Hoth. At the bottom, you can see the soldiers running as well as in the pits. Great scene, and it has a sister piece. And the sister piece, because I don't have one of her, and this is done very well. Again, the artist is Cynthia Martin, who did most of the did a lot of the work on the Star Wars Marvel run from 90 on. Here she is. This is a great Leia piece. And if you look at the bottom, on the bottom part of your page there, you see her looking up. That's the moment of the explosion. And you see the other side of the pit down here with a great Leia with a Han in the background over there. And her looking up at the person who, her most famous line was "Stand by, I am control." That's the only line in the movie. And then she says fire. But this Leia is drawn perfectly. And there's the watercolors, and it's done really well. I did the framing this weekend when I got it. I was very excited. And then the sister piece to the Luke, I'm Your Father piece, or just before he falls down, is Everybody Needs a Wookiee. And I got the Wookiee and the Falcon with Leia down here. And there's one other piece I'm not a big fan of, so I decided not to get it. Original art isn't like comics where you have to collect every one. You really just got to collect the ones that you like the most. I love the way Chewie's drawn here, kind of with the smile still. Like, laugh it up, fuzzball. But here he's got the mask on when he's inside the space slug. Here he is riding the Falcon with Leia after Han's frozen in carbonite at that moment, which we saw earlier. 4 great pieces that are going to look great, matted. They're all matted and framed in the same style frame. Different color mats, double matting on each one. This is going to look really cool when I get all this stuff up. And be tuned because Anthony today went to FedEx and dropped off the big boy. The big boy is going to be the largest piece of art I have, and probably the most incredible piece I'll ever have outside of Star Wars, unless I get the cover to 140 or 42. That's that. So some artwork for everybody. Again, not Golden Age, but I'm a big fan. So
Yeah, that's good stuff, man.
here we go. Okay, who wants to go next?
Yeah, I got a
Okay,
few-
I'll just pick. Okay. Let's bring up DS up here. I know he's got some good stuff. So.
All right. Yeah, I got a few things. I bought a few books off of Heritage. I haven't been buying off of Heritage that much over the last for a while. Just the prices are always top of the market. But they had a couple books I was looking for, and I was able to get both of them within my price range. So I was pretty happy with that. The first one, they call this a VF Plus. I would have been more comfortable calling it a VF, but possibly VF Plus. But anyway, good enough. Book I've been looking. I still want a higher grade, but a nice copy here. Showcase 60 first Silver Age Spectre. I still need a Golden Age Spectre book, but that's a much bigger purchase, so that will wait for now. But yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty nice copy. It's got a little bit of a grease pencil that'll come off. A few minor spine ticks and a little bit of corner wear, but yeah, pretty nice copy of that. So I'm happy to get that. Slowly getting towards the end of my Bronze Age horror list. I have almost everything I want. This one's been eluding me. I should have picked this up a few years ago, but I finally did get a House of Mystery 174 in a nice grade. This is where the mystery format starts. Sort of like it's number 174, but it's sort of like a number one issue-ish. So sort of like a Bronze Horror Key. It's a 1968 book. If you're into Bronze Horror, this is a sort of a key book. I like 9.0 and up for Bronze Horror. So I was able to get a 9.0 off White to White. So yeah, really nice copy. Happy with that one. And really,
That is one of my favorites.
I need a 9.0 or better of a House of Mystery 236. Anybody knows where one of those is, let me know. That one's impossible to find.
What's
Got this back
236?
from CBCS. Just a reholder, but I'll show it because it's a cool book. Silver
nice.
Surfer 4, 8.5. Nice, thick, rock solid new holder. Nice squared up spine, which I like on these books. So there's that. And then, I don't know, a little speculation. I'm not averse to risk. So let's try it out. Non-sports card, sealed pack, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Series 1. This is the 1989 box. Someone will say 1990. So I don't know. It's still, I put it in a plastic slab bag from CGC. Got this little cellophane on it with the Sam's Wholesale Club sticker still on it. I don't know. It's cool. Sealed pack from the 80s, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So yeah, we'll see what happens. That's it.
Nice. 236. I think I'll take a look at what I have on that because I've got pretty much run. I'm pretty sure Lewis is going down. Looking there. Guru, how was Florida? And
Florida's great, man. I gotta tell you, it was nice. It's a nice trip. I'm actually gonna head back there again end of the week. Meet up with my wifey. She's down there for about 3 months, so just kind of going back and forth a little bit.
excellent.
But,
Show us what you got.
Yeah, man. So this just came today. I quickly bought this, got available. Really tough book. This is an extremely tough horror book. And I got it, and I know a friend of mine really wanted it. And I bought it, and I wasn't going to tell him, but I was talking to him. And I couldn't help but tell him, guess what I found? Because I told him one of these days I'm going to find this book. I just said it to him like a month ago. Sure enough, popped up. Really cool. Okay. Extremely difficult book. It's not in the nicest of shapes. It's probably a 1.5. Presents well from the front. It's just got issues. But decapitation cover, head on a post, fence. Extremely tough book. And now the book's gone. So that was short-lived. But I got this book, and it was a 5.5, but I had it cracked out, and I bought it for a very specific reason. Outside of being a classic cover. But it's taken a long time to get it back after pressing and grading, COVID, and all that jazz. And so it came back out a 0.5 point higher to 6.0.
Oh,
Tales of
that'll be
Suspense,
cool.
Suspense 8,
Yes.
classic cover, obviously.
It's a lot better
But-
than mine.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so the reason I bought this is because of what it says on that label. Can you guys read that? Let's see. Let's give it a second to focus if I can.
Jeff.
Jeff.
Yeah, to Jeff. Happy comic hunting, LB Cole. Written on page
Nice.
1 in pen.
Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, so I bought this. This was my kid issue when I bought it in the 45 off the newsstand. I had him sign it. But I had to get it. It's like literally LB Cole saying to Jeff, happy hunting. Like, I said, I gotta buy this book, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
that
was,
book had your name on
That's
it.
great.
yeah. I got a couple others if you want.
Cool. Yep. But that reminds me, the only Stanley books I keep or signed were signed on my birthday. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. And then this I got two from Klein Comic Shop. All Flash Quarterly #1. It's a 6.0 white pages, and it's got that CBS check mark too. So it's just a really nice copy. It's a little miscut. It's never been pressed. I'm actually going to try to get it pressed in some resubmitted CGC, and I don't know where it's going to go. You just never know, but I'm hoping north, hopefully to 7.0. Fingers crossed.
Nice.
That'd be awesome. And then I got one other book here. I got this off of a Shortbox app. War
Oh,
Battles.
nice. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Flamethrower cover. I was like, I have to get this. I mean, it was just super reasonable. Flamethrower 8.5. I mean, come on.
Great.
Yeah.
Right? Man burning alive cover. I mean, come on. It's on the
I
label.
love that. A big shout out to Gene and Shortbox app. That has absolutely taken off. When we were talking about it about 18 months ago, 19 months ago, or longer, actually now. We're going to get him on here and explain the app to everybody. But if you don't know what that is, it is an amazing retail site for comics, regardless of era. But it helps us Golden Age guys out really well. I shout out to that. Check it out. It is really good. It's something that it's something the industry didn't necessarily need, but now that it's here, it's worth everything to happen. I mean, it's such a good app. It's short.
It needed it.
Yeah, it
It needed
did.
it because it's an updated version. You literally have computer developers. Like these guys are full-blown high-ranking developers who gave up their lives and all their careers working for massive companies to build this platform that's user-friendly and up-to-date and doesn't look like crap that we've been having to deal with, outdated. And they have a huge passion for comics. And you see that in the app, and it translates. It's so user-friendly. It's easy for the buyer. It's easy for the seller.
Yep.
I mean, it's good. It should be a place that you check.
I can't live without it now. I mean, anytime I see anything on there, I reach out to Gene. Gene's responsible for some of the key books in my Golden Age collection. Just reaching out to him when it started Shortboxed, and when he was doing it on the CGC site. I was buying a lot of raws. I tend not to buy slabs still. Still that guy who I think I'd rather slab it myself. A lot of I've never been burned on restoration or anything. I mean, I have with one guy, but we don't really mention Metropolis Comics that much anyway. So we just go with it right there. Knights, did you have anything
Was
you
that, are they our new sponsors?
No, we don't have any sponsors. You know that. Our closest
I
sponsor
just
is
wondered if I missed something. That's all.
our closest sponsor is right now craft cocktails and whiskey, and happy St. Patrick's Day month.
Well,
everybody.
yeah, I mean, the prices are so crazy now that I moved my funds offshore to other countries where I could fool myself into thinking that maybe the prices are cheaper. But I did get something, yeah. So this is old robot Mazinger, and he's kind of famous because he was the first one that had a pilot in it, and he is in this little ship in there on the top. And this guy's his name's Koji Kabuto, and what I found was this really awesome kids toy, and it's very old, but it's very neat. It's
Yeah, nice.
it's a
Nice.
like a almost a replica helmet of Koji's.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need you to put that on, Mike. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna need you to
Yeah,
put it
we're
on.
gonna need you to put that
I
on. If I
can't,
wore the
it's
Thor
too small.
helmet,
Yeah.
Louise-
But my
No.
daughter can barely she fits in it, so I'll post some pictures of that.
No, you gotta try it. You have to at least.
That reminds me of the Chips helmet from back in the day. Does anybody remember the Chips helmets?
Yeah.
Yep, so yeah.
But yeah, this I was very nervous about this arriving safely, but
It's in great shape.
yeah, it's not bad. And that's funny because I originally thought I saw this reflector and I was like, why did they put a reflector on it? Because the only reference image I had was from this old auction site, and it wasn't there. And then I ended up finding I had another book that had an image of it, and it was there. So I'm glad it is there because it's supposed to be there, and the only other reference had it not there. So it's tough finding this stuff, where you don't even have any reference for. But I don't know. It might all be worth nothing someday, but that's okay.
No worries.
You've
I
got
have
your-
I was collecting Golden Age just for the fun of it too, so that worked out.
Now we're gonna have Lewis on here, and he's got some books that we're gonna hear. We're gonna hear some chatter with some of these. Here we go.
Yeah, no pressure on that, right?
Yeah.
All right. I recently, just this past auction, I picked up a book at Heritage. I'll leave the suspense there. Of course, it might be till next week or so before it gets here. Only because I love paying buyer's premiums. So I was going to say, so I have about 4 books here. We'll kind of walk through. So one, I bought 2 books off a gentleman from the community. I think maybe you guys talk to him or not. I don't know if we're okay sharing names on here or not. But one of them is, I think, a pretty cool book that you don't see much.
So cool.
Nice.
Yep. So obviously, I believe this is a Kirby cover, and it has also Simon work in the book. I was going to say, I kind of opened it up. It's in pretty nice shape. Overall, it has kind of a little bit of a ding in a corner, but just sort of a book you don't see often. And that's sort of my wheelhouse. I kind of like to go for things that maybe have a little bit more of a scarcity to them. Kind of fun. But yeah, so, again, I was happy with getting it, a second book, not the highest of grades. I think if anything, I just kind of wanted it up for display, if anything, but I still, it's only a 0.5, but I just kind of wanted it as a collected piece, but it was Suspense 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, real nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
So yeah. So again, not the finest of grades, but at least in that book, it's A grade, and I'm good with that.
Suspense 1. I mean, it is Suspense 1.
Looks good to me.
Yeah.
And I picked up another book out there, basically this one off of eBay, where you ever just see a book for a split second, you're like, I kind of like it. I still do. It's just, kind of one of those impulse purchases. But it's a Captain Battle 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so again,
Oh, cool.
I'm a sucker for skulls, so it does have some little skulls back in here. And then not really sure what's going on with the guy grabbing some hair, and I'm not really sure what's all happening, but anyways, kind of a interesting book. And then I was gonna say, I guess I've got 2 more.
Good.
One I just had to go grab, just so DS might like it, but the last Golden Age book I'll show is this Green Hornet number 8.
Wow.
Nice.
And so
Green Horn.
yeah, and so I think we might have some later discussions sort of around these books, maybe this publisher, some of the artists that were in these, but I just thought it's again not a book that I've seen much of, and again it just has some pretty. I was curious, like this little guy over here, he's just walking around with a knife, and again, right up my alley. So again, I haven't seen that book too much, and so I kind of try to jump on it. And then in recent developments, i.e., this evening,
Oh,
Oh man,
is that available? Because I know somebody looking
Yeah,
for one. Great.
it's pretty nice as well. There's not a single spine tick on this book.
claim.
I don't know.
Claim.
I don't know what grade it is, but you mentioned it, so I kind of just pulled it out of
Yeah.
the file. So yeah, you know,
So it's your file copy?
yeah, exactly. I just got to stamp it.
Yeah, man, we're gonna have to talk. I need that book.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You might collect them more so than I, but yeah, it's a pretty nice copy.
Yeah, I've got like my Bronze Age horror list is not real long. I'm not trying to collect everything, but the one book that I used to have before I was really into Bronze Age horror was that book, and I sold it years ago. And I've never yet found another copy to replace. And I'm going through my Bronze horror, and I still don't have that. I have like maybe 3 to 5 books total that I still want, and that one is still eluding me, man. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's certainly a cool
Yeah.
right cover.
Love it.
Yep. Yep. One of my favorites there. So I'm going to
Yeah, so
shout out the chat a little bit. But, oh, you have one more?
Oh no, I was just saying that concludes my round. I'm having some artwork done by some people too. So hopefully, maybe over the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'm having some covers drawn, which I'm kind of excited about that. I guess if I can't find them and I can't buy them, I might as well draw a cover, right? You know.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I've gone down the guy reached out to me and said, "Are you interested in a piece by this guy? He'll do a custom for you. He's watched your show." I said, "Sure." And then I got hit with the bill, and I'm like, "Okay." So not a problem, but there we go. So let me shout out the chat a little bit. Our first guy.
I was going to ask Jeff on here. Have you seen or come across this book too many times, or maybe you have? Maybe
No. I mean, look, that book, the Champ books, those Green Hornets, they don't come up very often, especially coveted covers like that. I mean, the Green Hornets, an interesting one with a variety of people who've done the covers and the variety of covers you get. Okay, like from 1 and 2 and to then you get Schomburg coming in later with his style, and that's a great one. Anytime you kind of get the creepiness or the war books like that into the Champs and that in the Green Hornets, I mean, it's a win. Speed, same with Speed comics. Like I have this Speed, and it's cool and all, but about 10 issues before, it's even better. It changes pretty quickly.
I've been kind of trying to hunt down a Speed. I think I finally found someone for a Speed 18. If you're familiar with the cover, it's a graveyard cover. Okay. Basically, it has it's kind of a creepy graveyard scene. It's a Speed 18, so maybe.
Nice. Well, I'm going to shout out the chat a bit, and we're going to get ready for our topic of the evening. Chris Barrett leading it off. Thank God for him. We're ready to go. We can't go. We can start with Chris, but we really can't get the show started without Ricky Marstad getting us out of here. Here's our resident guy who's always going to have some great information. You're going to like this topic today. As a dysfunctional family of the Fantastic Four panel pales in comparison to the household of Frank Willer's Moon Mullins comic strip. Physical and verbal disagreements were the norm in that world. I love that stuff. Jambo Comics is here. Great having you here. Missed you last time. By the way, one of my favorite Rula covers is Avatar, I guess. There we go. John Heisen, very good to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us again. Thank you for being a friend as well. Craig Turk is here. He's wishing everybody the best. Hope he has a good show. Looking forward to the show. Looking forward to have you here and joining us in this discussion we're going to be having. Comic Mad Musings is here. Great to you. Hello, gang. Hello, you. Always great to have you here. DS made it in here. Says hello, everybody. Congratulations, by the way. I wanted to shout out this one here. All Golden Age stuff tonight. Yes, except for the beginning when we show our work and everything else because we like to show and tell on the show. But now, from here on out, it's Golden Age tonight. Some Ting Wong comes out there and says Full House tonight, and look at that Matt Baker cover right there. Very good. Very happy to have you here. Guru here is Mags here. William Smallwood's here. Good having Bill Smallwood here. Thank you very much for joining here. Enjoy it. NC Slapjacks, how we doing? Good having you here. Kachung has made it here. Hello, Golden Guys. Hello, you. And we've got another 19 or so that are joining us on the chat. So the topic for tonight, just to begin it up, one of the things I wanted to bring up was if don't want to miss anybody. Did I miss anybody? I think I might have. Who got their first Golden Age comic book?
Craig Turk.
Craig Turk, congratulations on getting your first Golden Age comic book. Oh, StreamYard Elements, that's who keeps showing up. Thanks for having our back, Duck. Okay, so our topic tonight, is a book or a series that has a plethora of artists in it. And we showed Lewis's Green Hornet. And just on, I have a guy here local in town who had every Golden Age Green Hornet book, the whole run. He's got collects every Green Hornet. Sent me a few of the hardcover stuff that he does, and he shows up downtown here a few times. And he's a big fan of it and his reason why, he said, never can you find a series with a caliber of talent in one series. I'm just going to run through a few names right here, and Anthony Perdue, you jump in when you're ready to go with some of your comments here. But the big ones are, you've got a book that's got Schoenberg in it, Bob Powell, Kirby, Simon, Jerry Robinson, C.C. Beck, just to name 6 of them. Now, if you don't know those names, you're probably on the wrong show. But those names include the guys who invented the Joker, the Captain America, the Shazam or Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel. Alex Schoenberg needs no introduction. Bob Powell, I consider him the workhorse of the Golden Age for the Timely World, as well as other books. I'm probably missing a few names, but
Joe Simon with Captain America and everything.
Simon, yeah. And it's one of those eras and one of those books that I know I've got into this discussion with Lewis that Green Hornet goes back to predates Batman technically in the pulp world, and the difference between
that Kirby guy did some things.
Yeah, Jack Kirby.
He did a few things.
But we have what you have is one of the things I discussed with a few people here and there is the Batman influence. So why Batman is the ultimate vigilante is what I hear. I'm like, well, Batman is just a caped version of, and this is my opinion, of either the Green Hornet, because the villains of Green Hornet were very similar in a way, or the caped version of the Spirit in a way, the vigilante justice system that was done during the Prohibition era to fight off the organized crime. I kind of am a big fan of those pulps that have the crime, whether it be the Shadow or speaking of pulps, Guru, great unboxing, by the way. Can't wait to.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I just randomly bought a bunch.
We are a month away from doing our pulp spectacular here on the show, our Pulp Fiction Spectacular. So get your EpiPens ready for that one. That'll be a good time.
EpiPens.
So that'll be a fun time right there. And I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing, but we're going to have a good time with that Pulp Fiction show. It's a show dedicated to pulps figures in the Golden
Is he
Age.
going to show?
Yeah.
If it's this one person, is he going to show my favorite pulp of all time?
Is it the one that I think we all like, which is the Bat Shadow one?
No.
Oh,
It's a Jungle Book.
I don't know. Okay. Okay. Maybe.
Like your
My favorite one.
Tarzan.
All,
That one's
that's
my
the
second
one.
favorite.
That's great.
Yeah,
So
that's
good.
like the Creeping Death photo. Is
Yeah.
I think it's the name of that painting. Yeah, they call it like a Creeping Death. Is
Yeah,
what-
it's a cover of a Shadow pulp.
It's
Yep.
amazing.
It is amazing.
So if anybody here wants to join in, it's like, what is some of the other titles or other books that you think that if somebody were to collect a few issues of, you can get the smorgasbord of Golden Age talent in there?
I got a smorgasbord book.
Go ahead.
It's one book.
Go ahead.
See it.
Captain 3. Okay. Now, state your case, sir.
All right, you got Schomburg cover, and it's the first time he drew Cap. You got Joe Simon and Jack Kirby on the inside, and Stan Lee wrote his first published text comic, whatever story in a text story in it.
That is a very
Not
good-
bad, huh?
Not a
Yeah,
bad call.
you might want to hang on to that book. It might become a key.
Yeah, might become a big book one day. Tough book, right there, Jeff.
Huge sleeper right there, guys.
Yeah.
Sleeper, undervalued.
Way under the radar.
Some of the
Scott
I
Pilgrim.
was waiting for Jambo to jump in with a few of his I mean, somebody's got to throw up their Jumbo.
Well, I've got a good one that I think
Go ahead.
it's personally I like, and it has 3 artists, 2 of which are superstars. The third one is no slouch, and it has a variety throughout the title of different covers and different styles and themes, and that's Catman.
Good one.
I think it's a Continental who also did suspense comics, but Catman, most of the bulk of it is Charles Quinlan art, and a lot of that has some World War II, some crime fighting. Just he has a really funky style. Really, a lot of line work and like curvature to his figures. I really dig it. But then there's some classic, like typical creepy LB Cole stuff, especially Catman 28 with like it doesn't look anything like the Quinlan stuff. And then you pepper in there's just a couple Schomburg covers in there as well. So yeah, Catman's just got a variety of cool stuff. And there are some people that work on Catman runs and trying to collect all of them. Some of those books are super tough to get. And it really has a very strong cult following outside of the major issues. Like basically the LB Cole ones are sort of the major ones, but there's one where Hitler's being strangled on the cover, and that's an ultra classic Hitler cover. And then you've got like Catman 31 or something with LB Cole, where the 2 of them are surrounded by wolves, and there's such a variety of covers in that run by some great artists, and it's just a really cool title. And I have never owned a single issue of Catman.
I was wondering, isn't there a LB Cole? Doesn't he show up in Green Hornet too?
I don't know. You're talking about Catman 20 with the strangulation of Hitler. I love that book, man.
Yeah,
one of these days.
yeah.
When you get a good looking copy, it needs to be a good looking copy. There was a 6.5 just out there, but I just went for too much at the moment.
Yeah,
Such
usually
a
I
cool
see
book.
that book rarely, but I'll see like a 1.0 or something, and it's expensive. And then
Yeah.
you don't ever see any more other ones. It's not like those books are around. And then some of the LB Cole, the later in the run come up from time to time, but the early part, man, you never see. But after like 25, 26, you'll see them more often. But the early part of the run's awesome.
I think it started with issue 5. Might have been the first appearance of, because it's before that it was Crash. He first appeared in Crash Comics like 5 or 4, and then it became Catman, and then you got the first appearance of Kitten there in the beginning, and it's so changed. Because then you also have like I think Kubert even did
Joe Kubert did Catman. Yes,
did number 7 or 8. I think that might have been one of his first works. It's just it's a really good call on that one. There's a lot of variety in those artists for that series.
Such a great book. One of the books I'm going to show up here, I'm just going to have to just bring it up for its historical purpose here. There it is. It's Jumbo 1. And on this single issue, mind you, okay, this single issue brings up, besides first appearances and everything else, you got Jerry Eigner and Will Eisner. You got the stories are written by Bob Kane, Will Eisner, Jerry Iger, Mort Meskin, who was one there, Bernard Bailey, Dick Briefer, who from the Frankenstein run. And of course, it's the first work issued by one man by the name of Jack Kirby. The series itself has spawned the artists including Dan Zolnowicz, Jack Kamen, Joe Doolin, and Matt Baker at number 69. To give you an idea, Jumbo Comics to me is why Jambo likes it as well. Jumbo is Fiction House's. It's my favorite artwork is in there. Not knocking the Riveted Planets. I love those as well. I mean, there you got a bunch of who's who as well. Yeah. But I just love Fiction House Jumbo Comics. Now, this book that I have on the screen here, you'll never see graded until they take my advice and build a slab to grade this book. I've seen 2 in the wild.
Was it Lou Fine also? The Lou Fine,
right? Lou Fine is on the net.
Maybe even that one.
He's in there. I don't know if he's the first one or the second one. I think I'm pretty sure it's 38. I don't know if he did the first one. He certainly is in with Les Marshall in there and Jack Kirby do that stuff. But Lou Fine does show up in a few Jumbo comics as well. I think he begins at 3 or 4. I know he's in 5 for sure because he's responsible for the Count of Monte Cristo story. And he then does the great, and these were thick, big books. They were Jumbo. It wasn't until you get to like number 9 do they become actual comic sized, and that's where Lou Fine takes over the cover works, and he does Jumbo 9, Jumbo 10 of the famous Spearing of the Dragon. And again, you got Iger, you got everybody you'd want right there. It's just a great overall, great title, great run. Jumbo Comics again. Jumbo 69 is the first Matt Baker. Some of the early, if you're interested in collecting first artist works, it is extremely one of the top 5 hardest Jumbo comics to get outside of the first 8. That is the one that everybody's looking for because everybody wants that.
Do you have a record like when the last time that book was on any type of an auction? I know several years ago.
Jumbo 1?
I
Jumbo
made
was
a bid buy one that was kind of poor condition, and I think it only sold for a couple grand maybe at the time.
Yeah.
I kind of regret maybe not going a little further on it, but it's not it's certainly you don't see a heck of a lot of them either, you know.
No, you don't. And the con I did see one at, and I saw it on a Thursday of a con. And when I asked him how much he wanted, I said, "Okay, I'm interested." And by the time I went to the cash machine and back, it was gone. And the guy sold it for a decent amount.
Is it Jumbo Comics? Is it number 3? That's the rarest. There's one that's
right. Correct. The no sales record of any CGC slab. Again, because there's no slabs of any of these books, the data you find is GPA non-graded levels. But Jumbo Comics itself, 3, you are 100% correct that Jumbo Comics 3 is the one that is the true unicorn of the Fiction House books. Hey, these were first. You know, let's be honest, these are the first of that comic era. But Jumbo 23 is, as Jeff pointed out to me, I've been looking for that Dan Zornowich cover. But Jumbo Comics started in 38, and it doesn't predate Superman. It shows up a little bit after Superman. But Jumbo Comics 3, the last one I've ever known of it I can't find anything in the last 15 years. The only thing I have is a book, a reprint of the era in Hawks of the Seas. Was a Sunday strip that was done 3 years later, and the original artwork for that went for sale and hit. It was bought by a sports guy because the characters in it was Babe Ruth, Bill Tinden, and Primo Carnera, which was a famous boxer at the time who fought, was the Italian fighter who fought in between Max Baird, Jim Braddock, and Joe Louis. Primo Carnera was always in there. And Will Eisner actually doesn't even sign that book as Will Eisner. He signs it as Irwin, which is a very, very hard one to find. But right, Jumbo 3.
Jumbo 10 has been on my list for a while. It's a Lou Fine cover.
Mm-hmm.
I go back and forth on how much I want to pay for this, and I don't know. Every time it comes up, I feel like it's, to me, worth a different amount, and I just can't settle on a value for that. Sometimes I feel like it's super awesome, and sometimes I'm like, man, I don't want to pay a ton. I don't know, but that's the Jumbo that's on my list.
So Anthony Purdue says as Marvel Mystery Comics. Absolutely, that's a great one. Daring Mystery Comics and Crime Does Not Pay. That's one that people think it's all Chadero. That's one of my favorites right there. I own that one. Yep, and that's Sheena, who predates Wonder Woman by several years. So she's the first true superhero right there. Anthony Purdue also brings up the comic strip titles, Famous Funnies, Popular, Tip Top, by great creators. Yeah, Famous Funnies, you can add a bunch to that. I think that's one of the things about Golden Age, when people synonymously think of the modern era books with a single artist or a single artist, you mentioned the name. You say Todd McFarlane, you think of either Spawn or Spider-Man, but you don't think of Spider-Man as Todd McFarlane. It's the same thing in the Golden Age in that realm. But when you think of a Golden Age book, when you say somebody like Green Hornet, they may or may not know just how many different artists have actually influenced. I mean, you're talking all of them. I mean, I say it's the who's who. You know, And there's a
One
few
of
other
the viewers that had mentioned Crime Does Not Pay.
yes.
Does have an eclectic group of writers, and not to get into the story, it also has one of the more twisted backgrounds of what happened, at which the irony is, one of the writers in the series actually ended up going to jail for committing a murder himself. So,
Oh, tell the
which is
story. We're good with
but,
that.
yeah. What's that?
So tell the story.
Well, the writers on the one of the main writers that were often in those series was Charles Byro, and the other gentleman that was and wrote most of those books. And the other gentleman himself kind of got himself, and I just blanked on the gentleman's name. I apologize. Maybe it's late, but he himself, I think, drank and got into some issues. He, I think, got it. I guess as it goes, he found the accompaniment of the Women of the Night, and might have killed her. And then eventually ended up going to jail for the murder of the gal. So it was always kind of interesting. The writers of The Crime Does Not Pay, one of them, I think Charles Byro ended up going and doing TV work or movie work or some different things out in different studios. But the other gentleman, if you kind of look it up, I don't know how many comic writers, especially of crime
Bob
novels.
Wood.
What's it?
His name's Bob Wood.
That's it. Yeah. He was in a lot of those, and he himself kind of went down the dark, twisted path. So I always found that to be, if there's, as Homer Simpson once stated, irony can be pretty ironic sometimes.
There you go.
He's an artist.
One of the books I want to bring up from the pre-code horror era was Eerie Comics. Kind of had a who's who, if you ask me, of people I like at least. You've got Wallywood, Joe Orlando, Joe Kubert, Everett Kinsler, who we talked about briefly last week about his work on a lot of.
Wait a minute. What is this? Convicted for manslaughter, but he only served 3 years. 3 years and 8 months in prison.
Yeah.
She was a woman of the night.
I guess it wasn't so bad back then.
No.
But then, you know what? A few years after his release, he got run over by a car and killed. So that might be, friends of the victim there.
So he would have been safer in jail.
Crime truly does not pay, and karma's a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
From Boston.
Oh.
Is that a Fiction House title? Karma's a bitch?
It should be.
Should have been.
It's your cousin from Boston. So, yeah. That should be a title.
The pre-code horror ones that are pretty impressive. The one I was thinking was Eerie because of the Wallywood, Joe Orlando, Joe Kubert combination on that title. And it's really not a long title run. It's very few, actually. I think there's of Eerie Comics, there might be 10. I don't mean the Warren Publishing. I mean the Avon.
Yeah, I think there's like
Journey.
13 issues or something, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. But that always had some great artists in that stuff. Some you associate with Golden Age horror, and some you don't. You don't usually associate Kubert, Kinsler, Wallywood, and Joe Orlando necessarily as horror covers, but Eerie is what they were mostly known for. And by the way, Carmine Infantino was also one of the very first works he did as well for Avon publication. Say is also in the Eerie title. So
yeah, Wood and Orlando went on. I don't know the timing, but they worked at EC and pick any title and we'll say that title will count for this. Right. Wood and Orlando. Then you got Frazetta work also in the EC books, along with Johnny Craig and Jack Davis. So for me, when it comes to pre-code horror, I don't collect EC, but it has nothing to do with the quality of the books. It has to do with the rarity. I like rare horror books. EC is just too common for my taste, but they really have it's the Cadillac of staff at EC for pre-code horror. They really are like the top-notch, most professional. They even had their editors would hold back how far they would push the envelope as far as gore and obscenity on their covers and in their stories, because they wanted to keep the joint classy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a good idea probably at the time. Now looking back, there's these horrific stuff from Harvey and other publishers that just blew the lid off horror, and EC was keeping it classy. It hurts the collectability a little bit, many decades later, but
Graham Ingalls.
Classy operation they had at the time.
Yeah, I think Graham Ingalls was another
Ingalls,
one.
yeah, Ingalls, another one.
Yeah, he had some fabulous. Yeah, I was like Graham Ingalls had some fabulous stuff, and he's another one. If you kind of go the intertwining of all the different artists, and then you look at kind of the background of them. Again, he was interesting in the fact that how great his work was, but he was actually just kind of ashamed to ever be in the business. I think he kind of moved down to Florida and didn't want people to ever knock on his door or even recognize the work that he did, which is kind of a shame. So,
All right.
I'm sure
I'm still on this thing.
Yeah, you are.
3 years. How does it take 3 years?
yeah.
This is a great question here. Has anyone experienced the new guy afraid to pull a figure on your first person issue?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's the rabbit hole. It's when you.
I got 2 words that cured that for me, and will cure it for anyone else. Fuck it.
There you go.
Fuck it.
Go with
That's it
it.
right there, man.
Dive in and whatever. It's only money. Just fuck it. Do it.
Right, and we
Seriously.
take pictures. We take pieces of paper with pictures of people on them for better pictures with people on them.
Just buy something that you can sell.
And enjoy it. I mean, you don't have to marry a book. That's what I tell
Yeah.
people.
And if it's if it's
I tend to marry.
You
value and something that
do. Yeah, you
sells a lot, you'll get your money no problem.
One thing that is
Sell it right to Jeff.
There's expenses and there's investments, and yeah, I know a lot of people are buying comics because they like them and not thinking about investment. But if you're going into a new area or you're going to go into uncharted territory for price or category or something, you're limited on the downside, because if you go out and spend money on a movie and it sucks, you've lost 100% of your money and you got nothing for it. If you buy a book and you end up not liking it or moving on or something, you can always sell it. Even if you sell it at a loss, how much of a loss are you going to take? I mean, you have a limited downside. You can always recover some of it. So, there's look, we all take risks in life, and I could fill a notebook with risks that I've taken that were greater than crappy comic purchases. I mean, you can only lose so much on a comic. It's worth it to try, and it's an educational experience no matter what. So that's how I come around it now.
The
Yeah,
first
that's
time.
The individual who was on earlier who said they bought their first Golden Age book, or at least
Yeah.
viewers, I
Craig
both
Turner.
wanted to congratulate them and say we're sorry.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah. I was gonna say it's still fun or whatever. Yeah, I kind of think that the comics, when you collect them, if you just look at them from a pure dollars perspective, is one thing, but I don't know, man. Just enjoy it. Like, if you have the ability, don't spend something if you can't make your rent or what's, but just enjoy it. And as a DS says, every so often in your life, man, you just got to say the heck with it. There's always a million reasons why not to do something, and sometimes you just have to say,
I've never regretted,
yeah.
The stuff that I bought. I've only ever regretted stuff that I chose not to buy. And when I think back, well, you know what? I should have pulled it. I still do that now. There was that movie Comic 6, that really ancient robot cover.
You could have bought that. You had an opportunity to buy
Yeah, that
that.
was a 7.0 like a couple months ago, and I didn't want to go over $3,000, and it sold for like 35 or something.
Yeah.
I go back in time, I would have bid 5 on that thing. I'm never going to see another one like that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so yeah. I regret not blowing money on that. But when I buy something and it doesn't work out, I never regret that. Really, you can just always move on easier. At least you try.
I know just recently people might think I'm insane, but I don't regret spending the $10,000 on those X-Force, trading cards. I just I think it's a
Like you can do the research till you're blue in the face, but at some point you got to jump in. So jump in, do your research if you're not comfortable, obviously. And like we said, the biggest regrets we all have on here are the books we didn't buy.
Right.
and get in. It's the best way to learn, because once you're financially committed, you're committed, and that way you're kind of a little bit more influenced and forced to have to do like a little more, just understand the book, understand the market, and keep going. Like,
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
In
I
2000,
dropped-
probably about April of 2000, I bought my first Timely Golden Age cap. Not my first Golden Age book, my first Golden Age cap. And I had a choice between the Weird Tales Scary One or Cap 23. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, well, there's no MCU at the time and everything else. And $250 was a lot for a book at that point. And there wasn't somebody that I knew. I paid $250 for that book. And eventually, I didn't love it as much as I thought I did. And I did sell it for a lot higher. Or I
Which one did you get?
23.
Oh,
Captain America 20. I know.
so
It's the one I regret selling because I love that cover now. But I didn't sell it. I traded it in, and that let me get a bunch of other books. And that's pretty much how I did things. I knew a guy who really wanted that book. This is while the CGC website was in its infancy and the internet was barely a blemish. Cons really were the way to trade. And I would walk into a con with Lewis knows I come in with a stack of books in a binder, and I walk in there and I say, okay, this is what I've got to go, and I want to see what you got. And it wasn't like I traded in for like a Carnage or anything like that. I traded some serious Silver Age Fantastic Fours. I got a Doom, first appearance of Doom for that, and the book I really wanted was number 4, which was I think it was a 3 or 4 the first time they got the car. That one, the one where they got their uniform in the car. Oh yeah,
3. It was 3.
Great. I had at one point prior to my daughter being born, and she's only 5. I had every Fantastic Four from 1 to 74, 72, 73, and 74. I still have quite a bit of them. Don't have the 1 through 13. That was bought us an SUV. But that's what we needed at the time, and I did not want to get rid of my 2-seater BMW, which was kick-ass.
Well, when I get into a new area, even in Golden Age, like last year, you guys remember I got into like the Atom Age War genre pretty heavy. I was just like all of a sudden, what I tend to do, and I don't know if this is a good thing to do or not, but this is what I do. When I get into a new area, I tend to just research obsessively and look for stuff. And I just sort of like, that's cool, purchase. That's cool, purchase. And I feel like for me, the learning experience works best when I actually go out and acquire a bunch of the stuff. And then as it settles out in my possession, I figure out what I like, what I don't like, what I need to get rid of, which a lot of times I sell for a loss. But then the other ones I got, I end up having really nice value and awesome stuff. And then I sort of trim it down. I get focused. Once I'm familiar with it, I purchase a bunch of stuff. I cut the fat off and I keep the good stuff and I go forward. Maybe not the most cost-effective way, but it is for me, the best way to learn the genre is just pick up the stuff. And I don't spend a ton at first. But once you get it in your hands and you start searching for it and you're buying it and you're reading it and you're looking at it, and you get, that's the best education, is just jumping in and figuring out. So I just tend to buy a bunch of stuff and get familiar with it. And then I get more focused and sort of hone it over time and cut a lot of the other stuff off, which I end up losing money on some of it, but it's fun and it's a good learning experience. And overall, I think it's profitable from an experience standpoint and a money standpoint, because I've learned it accelerates the learning curve, I feel like.
Yeah.
You still have your first Golden Age comic?
Me?
I had mine.
No, I mean, the first Golden Age comics I bought were pre-code horror books off of eBay for like $50 each. All have since sold. Probably the oldest one Golden Age book that I still have. I mean, I don't know. Terrific 5 I have. That was
You've had that a while.
early-ish. That was early-ish on. I blew my whole con budget on that one book. And it was worth it. I still have that. Yeah, I don't know. I tend to not lose interest so much, but I like to have my collection be fresh. So I tend to sell a lot of stuff that I love, and I get new stuff that I love. So there's a constant turnover. I don't have a lot of books that I keep forever.
What about you guys, Louis and Jeff?
I keep.
Did you
Yeah.
you still have your first? What was your first Golden Age comic?
I'll be honest, I can't remember my first Golden Age comic.
I
And I'll tell you real quick, I can't remember what it is at this point. But what I would say for me that got me to learn the most at once is buying collections. Like if you can find a way to just buy a collection, whether it's I don't know what time frame you're looking in, gold, silver, bronze, modern, but if you can find a way to get a group of books, whether it's even a low grade lot of something in Golden Age, that way you're just kind of forced to have to do the research on a per book and get exposure to what it is. I mean, it's a huge, because then you're just trying to, like, when you dive into a collection, you're like, okay, where do I get my money out of it? How do I get recouped funds? What is this? What? And you're going through it, you're like, I don't know. It was the biggest way for me to learn. And like DS says, I just jump all in. I just bought a pulp collection of 35 books, and I was like, I have no freaking clue, but I'm going to learn real quick.
Yeah.
And then you figure out all the avenues too. Not only do you figure out the books, you figure out the avenues, and you start working a little harder because then you hustle, and then you start to learn, because it's easy to buy, it's harder to move. And I'm not saying that's what you're trying to do, but if that's part of it. If you learn how to move a book too, it'll help you also learn more about the book.
Yeah.
On top of that.
Yeah, but it's sort of like, I don't know, my philosophy on a lot of stuff, but not everything, is if you force yourself into a position where you have to move forward, then you don't have the chance to think about, oh, should I or shouldn't I, or be wishy-washy about it. It's sort of like that quote that Sean Connery has in The Hunt for Red October, where he tells his crew on the sub that when Cortez reached the New World, he burned his ships, and as a result, his men were well motivated. So that's sort of like what I do a lot of times. I just force myself into situations that force me to learn and study and move forward into a project. Because a lot of times you'll find yourself spending so much time wondering whether or not if you should, that you end up losing time that you could be gaining experience and joy from a particular project or hobby or something. And if you jump in and just go forward and it turns out you don't like it, well, then you've saved yourself the time. You can just now move on to something else quicker. So sometimes it's good to just force yourself into new situations that you can afford to be in and just check it out and just go forward. And then you'll like it or not or whatever.
What about you got your first one still, Louis?
Yeah, I think I do. I'm almost positive that it was some Batman comics, and I've got some I think I bought some old Batmans when I was a kid that I still have. I kind of have a different, I don't think there's a right or wrong. I don't really try to overcomplicate it. I tend to marry my stuff. But you guys are gonna joke or laugh about this, but I suspect of all the books that I've bought, I've only probably sold 2. And one of them is just because I kind of grabbed it because it wasn't anything that I collected really. But as a whole, I just pretty much just kept all my books. I've never really sold. Of the Golden Age books, I've never really sold any. My son and I, we've got some more, a few modern books that my son has kind of grabbed. And then sometimes I've sold a few of those. But as far as Golden Age books, I don't really know that I've ever sold any of my Golden Age books. To be honest with you, I regardless if they're hot, popular, or if I've had them, I still like them. So I don't know.
So, man, I probably only keep 10%, or I don't know. I mean, I feel like the more I got into Golden Age, I started selling less because I started getting the ones I really wanted. But I certainly couldn't get what I have today without selling a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm not saying my route's the cheapest route by any means. I mean, there are times, and it's not that I'd ever be opposed. Like, hey, there are certain books out there that if someone was ever willing to make a trade or something, that I would certainly consider it. But I think JD's given me a hard time before. He said, I tend to marry my books, and I think that's fair. I
used to do that. Here's an old photo of my top 8 books.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're pretty decent grades. I mean, you can see that Black Cat was a 7.0.
That was a great book. I remember when you got it, and I remember when you sold it.
Yeah, so every single one of these is gone from my collection. Every single one. and they just were pieced out over time. And I think the last one to go was these two down here around the same time. That was just months ago. I got rid of those. I upgraded this, so I don't know if that really counts. I plan to upgrade that, so that doesn't really count. But I don't know. I mean, do I miss those books? Yeah, of course. I love those books. I still love them just as much as when I bought them and when I owned them. It's not a matter of whether or not I love them, but I can get them again. And there's other cool stuff that have taken their place that I absolutely love. And I've really, over time, have really, I don't know how shallow or whatever this sounds, but I really appreciate the investment and monetary aspect of comics, because you can enjoy comics and make money at the same time. It's like a super cool concept. And when that dawned on me at some point, without even being a dealer, when that dawned on me, I was like, man, I can have stuff that I love and have money to make the stuff that I love bigger and better. That's sort of what I've been doing. And so I'm working with the same amount of money as back then, but I have bigger and bigger books. And it's kind of cool. It's like a challenge to see how big of a book I can get that's way above my sort of lifestyle. It's a cool thing.
My first pulp ever is this pulp. Amazing Stories. I ended up buying this pulp for $2 at a antique shop in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, on my way to go buy a big portion of the Western Pen collection. When it came out, I ended up buying a lot of the Western Pen, and I had $5 left over, and this was what I had. I said, I can't go home without any money. What do you have for $5? And he goes, I got this pulp back here. So, and it even has,
cool.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. He wanted $7.50 for it at the time. As his pencil market cited, so I paid $5. I know Guru's laughing because these go for a lot now, but I read this thing. I actually sat on the bus back to Stroudsburg, of all places there, DS, and I read this thing back, and I remember going through it being like, this is bizarre. You know, it was such a different world, but this is what the TV show on NBC was based on, so I was a big fan of it. So
is Night showing like a
Night, that's Night's first Instagram.
I only have 4 of these left. But I still have my first Golden Age.
Yep.
That's your first
Golden Age.
Yeah,
you know, you'll know it if you love it and you want to keep it, because you just won't sell it.
The only the regretting books that I missed the most buying for dirt cheap was about $20 a piece for the Disney Carl Barks books, because I didn't know. And that's when Jeff brought up research, and everybody brings up research. I was at it, and Anthony was there as well. I think he bought it. And it was at a show in the 90s in New York. And it was not in the city. It was upstate a bit, but it was in Rockland County. And they had a baseball card show on one side where the guys who were famous for, well, I'll tell you what, it was 1991. It was the guys that were famous for doing the shot heard around the world. It was the 40th anniversary year. So it was 1991. I graduated high school already, or I just graduated high school. And then I was going to college. I was very young. I was like 16 at the time. And went up there, and I went to the baseball card show, and I collected comic books. So I was sitting there buying some other comic books, and for $20 a piece was the Disney books. And the guy said on top of it, Donald Duck. It was $20 each. And they were in okay condition. I'm not saying they're 9/8, but they were mid to high grade. And they were $20 a piece in 1991. Every Carl Barks one. And it didn't so much for the value, just because if you wanted to try to replicate that today, you couldn't in a million years. You couldn't replicate collections that were available at the time for, people were buying books then in the early 1991, which remember was technically, I guess you'd say, was one of the high points of comic collecting of people my era, when X-Men 1 came out, and it was just the Jim Lee explosion, the Spider-Man influences, everything was going crazy at the time in comics. But the Golden Age stuff, or specifically at those cons, was old books that nobody cared about the title of. I mean, I didn't say there wasn't an AF-15 that was cheap, but there might have been a few. I don't think it Tales of Suspense 39, but a few early Tales of Suspenses probably were in there, and there was a lot of Golden Age books, and people were just paying. The box used to say $5, $10, $20, $15, and that's what it was, and it didn't matter the height per box, and there is no.
It used to be pretty much if it wasn't a superhero book for the most part,
It was dirt cheap.
it really kind of was set aside. There was a few books, but if it wasn't a superhero book, it didn't really get much love, But I had a quick question for Guru. Here's a question talking about personal collections. Like, kind of in your mindset, what's your delineation between a book that's going to make your personal collection or not? I don't, I always wondered. You handle and see so many books out there and so forth. Like, how do you delineate between, like, hey, this is my PC and this is what I'm willing to sell? I'm just curious, like, if that question makes any sense.
No, it makes sense. And I tell you, sometimes I question myself, like, what is it? But for me, a lot of it's emotionally, like a connection with the book, that it hits me in the right place where I just like it across the board. And usually I like things on multiple, like, okay, so like good girl art's great, but for me to like it, it has to be like that super select good girl art. It can't just be good girl art. We're covers. So for me, I like the scarcity of a book. This is very important. And if I don't love the book, I might love it in a really high grade, because then that puts that book in an echelon of more scarcity and demand. So I like to have things that less people have in the world, and however you want to place that or whatever. I just like knowing that I have something super scarce and special. And then sometimes it's like middle of the road, but if it goes to a certain grade level, it'll then pique my interest more.
Yeah.
So for me, I like covers. Automatically, it's got to be a war cover. I love war covers. I love Peps. I love Irv Novik's work on Peps. I don't like Peps when Archie comes in. He ruined that title for me. If you ask me, Pep jumped the shark when you brought in Archie.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Sorry.
So we're okay.
Yeah, okay, Teen Humor does nothing for me. All right, I don't care if it's Archie. I don't care. Like Pep 22. Great for Prince Archie, but I don't love the cover because it's Archie. I like Pep 22 because it's a rare book. It's a Pep. Great. Archie, he's in it, fine. But he's not on the cover, so he's not ruining it for me. I don't know. Planets are cool, but I don't like all planets. I hate Planet One. I think it's terrible.
Really?
Yes, it's a terrible cover in my opinion.
Blasphemy.
But there's other Peps, are the planets I love. Like Peps in the 30s. Okay, I like those quite a bit. The rivets, they're early. They just delineate themselves with the rivets. Okay,
exactly.
But they're not all that great in the whole run. I think there's better. So for me, again, it's just something that I'm attracted to. And Zips. I love MLJ stuff. Zips are great. Silver Streaks are a great title that I like. I don't like all Silver Streaks. It's tough. It's got to be the cover. It's got to be the artwork. It's got to draw me in on multiple levels. And more funds, like, there's some cool Spectre covers. There's some uncool Spectre covers too that aren't that great and more fun.
I love one of the things I want to ask Jeff in the same,
like most of them.
Yeah, right.
And this kind of leads into this question: scarcity. With Wanted, my own personal collection is I have quite a bit of the Wanted comics that have less than 5 on the census, and I might have 2 or 3 of the slab copies of them. Same issue, and I'm just a psycho because I'm upset because I was the first one to have 2. I had all 2, and then 6 became on 4 years later, so I had to buy a 3rd and a 4th just because I wanted to be the one person to have more than anybody else. So he asked this core question, which is great. So scarce GA books, which scarce is rare is, if I use pulp language, rare is the the upper super rare is the upper echelon. Scarce is just below rare. But I agree with you on scarce when it says there was less than 10 on the census. He says, are scarce GA books better investment long term than silver or BA keys? The market sure moves faster than seems to see Silver Age and Bronze Age books due to movie first experiences, etc. Because it's a supply and demand thing, there is much more demand for the Silver and Bronze Age than there'll ever be for Golden Age. Unless you're talking the top 10 books of the Golden Age, there will never be a demand that will ever outdo an AF-15 and X-Men 1 today.
You just have to add key. If you add keys to this whole message, then it'll work itself out a little bit better.
Well, let's just go over an example of one of each.
Scarce key Golden Age books.
Key Golden Age books are harder to find. But like,
if I never,
yeah.
I was gonna say, if I never took any of my money and put in Golden Age books and put it on in Silver Age, my collection would be worth way more than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I have a damn good collection, personal collection. But I gotta tell you, like, Silver Age is just a broader base of collectible. It's just where people feel more comfortable investing and putting their money in collecting. But do I like it more? Hell no. I love having a Golden Age book, which I know will still gain value, but like I'm drawn to Golden Age more so. I'm drawn to Bronze Age more than Silver Age even. Like my second favorite, like I've said it before, is Bronze Age. Like Golden Age.
I subscribe to that newsletter. Bronze Age.
I get more pleasure out of collecting Golden Age than Silver Age because I can get Silver Age any given day of the week, anytime.
Yeah. I was just gonna say Silver Age is one of those things for the most part, all of it is. It's not a matter of finding it or hunting it or scarcity. It's just a matter of what your pocketbook is. There, I mean, you can go to any website, any con, any event, and find whatever Silver Age book you're looking for. If you have a checkbook that can get whatever grade, it's like I say, if you're after a Silver Age book, you can at any point in time you can find pretty much whatever grade your budget allows. A Golden Age book, sometimes like you're forced to get the only grade available.
Yeah.
You can't.
Something happens when you start to notice. I might, if I pass on this, I might not ever see this again.
Adventure 34.
And then you're screwed. If you're into that, then you're kind of
I mean, Adventure 34 to me isn't just a unicorn. It's the bane of my existence that I passed on the book that became the 6.5 at a con, and I passed on it right in front of a guy who I knew was going to buy it. I'm like, I'm going to pass on it, and I don't know what turned it because I'm a big Adventure Comics pre-hero fan. I have 3, and I love Sandman. So that's like, if anybody asks me what's my favorite Golden Age era or common Golden Age era, which isn't common, like 10 on the census or something like that to collect outside of the elephant covers. The only one that crossbreeds it is Adventure Comics for me. Adventure Comics, not so much the Dr. Fate and everything else. It was the Sandman issues that I first was attracted to. It's the one like 40, 42, and 34, and 72, and the early ones, the pre-Superman one Adventure Comics are just so cool. It's so different. It's better artwork there. But what Lewis said is 100% right. You can find a Fantastic Four or a Fantastic Four 1. You'll find 11 of them within the next 7 seconds if you tried.
The thing about Silver Age,
Adventure 34, and I'll talk to you in 8 months. Yeah,
the difference between Silver Age and Golden Age, though, there's a much less supply of like the Golden Age than there is of Silver Age. But there's also a much less of a demand. They're both good investments. The Silver Age, I feel like of all the eras of comics, has the highest demand out there. So those books are the most liquid, I feel like. Even though there's seemingly a lot of them, the demand is so high. And it's not, I don't know, it's not as easy as if you want to AF-15, just pick your grade and write a check. Because at that level, there's presentation, there's page quality. There is a lot more that goes into it on the Silver Age keys. I don't know. The gold is not quite as liquid, but I feel like I'm much more confident that the value is safe. It may not go up crazy, but it's safe. If I buy a Golden Age scarce book for $5,000, I pretty much am confident it's never gonna go for less than $5,000 for the most part.
That's
Silver
hard
Age-
though.
Silver
That's
Age
so hard for people.
It doesn't pick up over the long term, but short term, Silver Age. And there's people that bought AF-15s in 2017, and they're just now getting a value return on those books. If it
Right.
was
And
Hulk 181, I sold my Hulk 181 for $5,000, and it down, and it just now is going above that. It's way up above that now. So, but the gold I feel like is just steady, especially scarce stuff, because usually you can have the only one of two on the market.
if you're going to compare it to investments, I consider the Silver Age keys and the Silver Age #1s as your blue chip stocks. I compare Golden Age to bonds, to where there is a certain value of that, and it's bonded, and you're valued at that. Not necessarily junk bonds, but bonds in general that do have a yield that are more or less going to be the same value, give or take here and there. I mean, if you go to a con and you find a cheap deal on what you know and one of us know, or an expert or whatever we want to call ourselves, someone in the know, we see a book that a guy has on his back wall that we see for $500. We know we could flip that tomorrow for $1,100 on a Golden Age, because we may know more than that guy. On a Silver Age book, it will take him seconds to go on eBay to find the value of that book.
That's what makes it hard, and hard for people because they, when you look at the GPA and you don't even see the book for sale in the past 5 years or whatever at all, or nothing in the grade that you're looking to buy, it's really hard for you to justify that it's worth that much, unless you have the experience. And it's kind of like if you compare it to real estate, it's like, these houses in this neighborhood, if it's this type of house with this much whatever floor space, it's gonna be X. And but then there's like, this was owned by the architect, blah blah blah, and it's the only house that you can see the mountain, blah blah. It's like these just weird, and it's like you're like, why is that so high? And it's like I can't compare it. Like your insurance. If you have a bad insurance, like guy who's judging the value of your things, like they'd have a real tough time with some of these Golden Age books. That's why silver, a lot more people who don't have the time or the passion to get into all the details and all the buying and years of experience, they just feel way safer because, like you said, you could just go on eBay anytime, go to GPA, that same grade, sold, blah, 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 consistent, no problem.
Yeah, I think if you're dealing in Golden Age, or it's like financial business, we like to call there's more arbitrage between between the books, and then but here's the thing too, like, so if you look at Silver Age books, for the most part, when you say all the keys, all the books are pretty much superhero driven, right? I mean, majority, all of them. As opposed, now Golden Age certainly does have its huge keys that are superhero, but if you look at a lot of the books we have on walls, they have zero to do with superheroes. The covers, the characters are not mainstream, right? I think that the Golden Age books were, at least for me, is more the love of the art, the style of how those books are, and therefore, they don't necessarily resonate with as large of a group of people, like versus to me the Silver Age. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting tired or something, but I'm trying to think of a Silver Age book that's people go after that doesn't really have anything to do with a superhero. Versus
there's cover keys like Silver Surfer 4. Nobody buys that because of the story in it. It's just purely cover driven. But I think the divergence between like Golden Age, non-superhero stuff that we sell a lot of, and like Silver Age stuff, it's like the Silver Age is comic book market, and the Golden Age stuff that we like is almost like an art market. I
would agree. It's more art. Like if you take the books like Fantastic Comics #3, it means
art.
Not
be a real Doc Samson fan to get enjoyment out of that.
Right. Yeah, you look at
markets operate differently because they're almost different types of collectibles. Yeah, they're all comic books, but the art market's different. It's subject to movement to different genres and different styles and different artists. More so that like no, it's not like all of a sudden everybody was on a Ditko kick in the Silver Age, and then all of a sudden everybody's back. Kirby's back on top. It's not like that. But in Silver Age, Matt Baker is an artist. His stuff will get hot as a part of the market. And then Schaumburg's stuff holds a particular status in that market. LB Cole will get hot, and the different types of LB Coles will move up and down. Lou Fine stuff, and like groups of artists and styles of art. It's more like an art market than a comic market for the Golden Age stuff.
That is a great point where the superhero-driven Golden Age books selling the 3 million, 2 million, those are going to be a record setters, let's be honest. But outside of those, what really draws the attraction of the Golden Age buyer is the artwork. Most of the stories in the Atomic Age are dribble. And like Guru, I subscribe to the good girl art. I just like my jungle art. Love the girl. I got a thing for girls in animal print. It's just one of those things that I beg my wife to wear. It's just it's just the way what we do. But
the Golden Age is more artist driven.
I always say that. Now there is an exception, and this is just a personal exception, but I think a lot of people that collect this character believe this, is that if you're a Doctor Strange fan, you want the Ditko Doctor Strange the way it was originally drawn. He's the one character that everybody who's drawn after him, whether it be Kaluta, Barry Windsor Smith, Maurice Severin, whomever was drawing Doctor Strange, nobody drew it like Ditko. Nobody has done, and that's the first character of the Silver Age characters. Doctor Strange kind of is different because he's not a superhero, contrary to popular belief. He isn't a good guy all the time. He often is a villain from a villain standpoint. While he's trying to control reality, he's also sacrificing human lives at the same time. The Ditko Doctor Strange artwork, when it's for sale in its original form, rivals almost any Kirby, with the exception of like a Key Kirby cover or splash page, or that's well known. A Ditko Doctor Strange is very, very, very sought after in the art market, to the point where it's actually almost a joke right now between me and a bunch of the art guys that we talk about, is that we're all sitting there saying, you and every Doctor Strange guy who understands it wants that Ditko Doctor Strange. In the Golden Age collecting of original art, there are 5 names that rule the roost, but there isn't any who doesn't garner attention. The artwork isn't as valuable in the Golden Age in its raw form. The cover and the complete book, being as scarce as it is actually one of the. Sometimes the book, there are 32 pages of a book, and all the original artwork is less than the number of book that is available. And that has happened with several books where the artwork became available in a couple of years ago. A particular book came out. There are maybe 4 or 5 known copies to exist, but there are 31 and a half pages or 32 pages, if you count the ad, 32 pages of original art for that book. And the artwork, each page sold at a fraction of what the book itself sells for. So it's just one of those weird situations that you have with Golden Age. And the thing that one of the this is a kind of a good debate question here for Lewis. You brought this up. Wouldn't money matter more with Golden Age? Then you have a wider selection of books and grades with every other age. Selection, but rarity. There's one 9.4 versus like I can't compare anything other than if I say ASM 300. There are 25,000 slabbed CGC books out there. There is no Golden Age book with 250. So 1% of any Golden Age book is left. than ASM 300. So
Yeah, I mean, the
art
Golden
heavy collection. I have
The issue with Golden Age is the valuation for Golden Age. It's like an art market where the valuation is where you can get a collectible and be instantly in the money or be down. The valuation game for Golden Age cover art is tough. That's definitely a challenge for even the most experienced. I'm not an expert, but I'm in Golden Age cover art, specifically, and I have trouble valuing some of this stuff, and sometimes I'm off by a ton. It's very tough to value. The Silver Age market is very easy to value that stuff. It's just, I don't know, it's a comic book market. It's different. Whereas the Golden Age cover stuff, it's a valuation game, and it's really tough. And you don't get a lot of opportunities, so you got to pick your spots and know what you're doing. And they're rare pieces of art, and the valuation is really tough. It's a challenge to value some of this stuff. I'll tell you, I'm wrong all the time. Sometimes I'm spot on, and I'm just like, I knew it. And
Silver Age,
like a famous Funny 213 in 7.5. I'm like, all right, I'm going to bid $4,000 on it. That ought to do it. And it goes for $9.
Yeah.
I mean,
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, I would say, if anything, if you're in the Golden Age collectibles market, I mean, there's every market, every investment always has its risks. There is no such thing as, no risks. But what it does have is you're not gonna have to worry about something gets saturated, right? There isn't going to be a saturation of a Golden Age books hitting the market, as like a modern or a Silver Age book. And one thing I was going to mention, one thing I always like, the Golden Age covers that separate from Silver Age, which is interesting. I don't know where the line hit, but a Golden Age cover, regardless of how it looks, because just of how crazy some of them are, and I think that's the attraction. Like, there's no Silver Age book that I can think. Like a Golden Age book, you have something like a clown with a baby rattle in a corner chasing somebody around on a tricycle with skulls up. You have just weird, crazy stuff like that, as opposed to the Silver Age. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
what I'd like to hang on my wall would be like dark GA books,
Yeah,
anonymous Bosch paintings, Salvador Dali. Like, I feel like it's an art market.
Yeah.
When I have Silver Surfer 4, I'm like, ooh, I can put this next to my FF48 and my Silver Surfer statue. It's more of a comic book thing. They're really different types of collectibles, even though they're both comic books.
Sometimes you have both art and comic in one.
I got a question for Jeff. So it seemed, I don't want to say it because it seems like it's kind of demeaning to some collectors, and everyone's different. But I mean, in your experience, I've heard it said a lot that if you're collecting comics for a long time, and especially if you're a grown man who has a good job or whatever, and you can buy whatever, you kind of graduate Silver Age and then go to Golden Age, because it's just kind of like there's so much there. It's exciting. There's so much you don't know about. I mean, have you seen a lot of people kind of graduate to Golden Age per se?
I mean, I'll tell you, I have a lot of people who reach out to me all the time saying, "Thank you, I bought my first Golden Age book from you. Thank you. Thanks for introducing Golden Age, blah, blah, blah." I mean, I'm not saying it's a huge amount, but I know I've introduced a lot of people to Golden Age. And that's the thing with Golden Age. I say it all the time. Like, I do think comics are a transitional thing from era to era. The more time you spend in one, you kind of get exposed to the other. And I'd like to think most people go from silver to gold at some point, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. The thing is, somehow gold has to get introduced to you. All right. And you have to be exposed to it, to where you're interested enough to want to explore it. So, when you go to a convention, you're only going to see on the wall what you recognize and understand. Like, most of it is going to be white noise. If it's covered in Golden Age, it's all white noise. So you have no idea. If you don't know gold, you're just going to walk right by it.
I remember those days.
You'll see the Silver Age books. You'll see the bronze. You'll see the ones that you recognize. All right. You might know silver and bronze, and you see all these modern books. You're like, psh, whatever, don't care. And that's just what it is. It needs to be presented to you. And because Golden Age is so rare, you don't see a lot of it. And then you don't see enough of it, enough repetition of the same ones for it to register.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem with Golden Age. It's not that it's I don't think people want to be involved in it. There's this thought that it's cost more money. Like Silver Age is freaking expensive.
Silver Age is
Gold can be
Way too
cheap,
much.
guys. I'm telling you, Golden Age can be cheap in comparison to Silver Age, but there's just not enough exposure, and people don't understand it and know it. And that's what this show is about. It's introducing it to other people so you get comfortable enough to take that step and really embrace it and try to understand, because it is a long time. It's 38 to like 55. I mean, that's a large chunk, so, and a lot happened in there, and there's a lot of variety. So, but that's a good thing. There's a lot to love and for anybody to really get into. I mean, like you said, is superhero. Bronze Age is a good variety of things, horror and some romance, some superhero, but really Golden Age is crime, westerns, which I don't recommend you getting into if you're starting, but horror, sci-fi, superhero, romance. I mean, like it goes on and on.
Yeah, a lot of people are uncomfortable jumping into Golden Age because we're in Golden Age. For us, this is a normal thing, but for people who are coming out of Bronze and Silver and want to get into some Golden Age like cover art, it seems off to spend a lot of money for just a cover. But you've got to think about that Golden Age is it's like an art market, so the cover is what you're buying, and there is no OA for that, and there's very few examples. It's like if Van Gogh did 100 copies of Sunflowers and he did all of them original and then framed them, and that's it. There's 100 of them out there. It's still like an original piece of art. There's just several of them.
And the condition throws a lot of people off. I remember when I first came in, I was like 2.5, or I was like a 4. I'll wait till there's a better one. And then you didn't realize that was actually a really nice.
Yeah.
But it's a key thing, right? So like for Golden Age, the covers are the key.
Right.
That is Silver Age. It's like the appearance is the key.
Yep.
So, but with Golden Age, it's not only appearance; the cover is the key itself. So,
well, I'll put any of my books up again. I'll take 20 of my Golden Age books that are just pure cover art, and that I don't care what's in the inside of them. I'll put that up against the first 20 issues of ASM, and the covers on the ASMs are just terrible. Okay,
Except for
I'm blows out of the water.
and 14.
ASM 3 is pretty badass.
14 is badass.
There's so much more because they're key. It's what's in the book that's important. So you have to change your mindset. Doesn't matter what's in the book. If you have the complete work of art with that piece of fine art on the cover, that is the key. And those are the keys, are the group of sort of high-end works of art in the Golden Age. That's the key.
Yeah.
So if Golden Age is a bond,
Right.
Silver Age or equities, does that make like moderns like cryptocurrency? What is that?
Absolutely,
I don't
cryptocurrency.
know, man.
There's nothing like a Bitcoin freaking ultimate Fallout 4 right now. There's
The
nothing like
modern game is like buying way out of the money calls on GameStop.
Yeah,
and
it's options. It's
hanging
options.
out on the subreddit Wall Street Bets, and you can make a ton of money, and shit can go south quick. It's a fast-paced, like Hollywood spec style of game. It's a totally different market, and it is fun. It's not something I'm interested in, but it's a fast-paced young person's game in that modern market.
I gotta tell you, man. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally take it. I don't take advantage of it, but if somebody's willing to pay for something, they're willing to do it, and I'm okay with that. Like, I recently offered out there a bunch of WandaVision keys. Well, you're talking dollar books, or at the most $5 to $10. I'm not saying Avengers 57, the great John Buscema covers. I'm talking about just standard like Defenders books in the 80s, and they're like, "Oh, it's the first appearance of so and so." I'm like, "Yeah, you're offering me how much for it? Yeah, let me see how many I have. I'll get rid of every one of them right now because that's exactly what I do, and I trade it for either original art, which is not the show, and it's another, like, I'm collecting specific artists in specific times, like the Star Wars stuff. Star Wars stuff is hot right now, and I'm getting a good deal on the original artwork by the original artists who worked on the original works. these are not easily come by. These are one of a kind pieces. I look at Golden Age the same way, but the thing is, this is a great example. When I told Liz I'm going to sell some of my key books because I can buy them later on in the future, buy better copies if I want to. I think at lower prices, maybe not lower, but I could afford them better. But I'd be a fool not to take advantage of it now. And when I showed her the Golden Age elephants, first thing she said was, well, don't sell those. You'll never find them again. And Liz doesn't know everything about comics, but she knows the hunt I went through to get the 126 of the 143 elephant covers in the Golden Age I have. The hunt I've been going on is 6+ years of every con, every book, everybody telling everybody what I'm looking for. And even in my other Golden Age books, I'm not saying my Superman and Batman Golden Ages, which I have a few of those, and some Green Lanterns, but the true Golden Age rarities of, oh wow, look at this Atlas, Lawbreakers Always Lose #3. Well, it's the first work of Gil Kane and John Buscema and Bob Powell, and it's the first this, and I bought one and I still don't know if I underpaid or overpaid because one has not sold since I bought it in 2009. I have never seen it for sale. And even though I've shown it to a bunch of the Golden Age people, they're like, what is that? And I explained to them what it is. And it's an Atlas book. And they looked at it and like, that's got to be worth a ton. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I don't think I could replace it. It's the same thing with certain things I own in my house that I walk around with or I have. I'll give you X for it. If I can easily replace it, I will sell it if I made a huge profit on it. If it's something that I know I will never be able to find another one, it's staying. And that's exactly the Golden Age comic book collector.
Have you seen that a lot, Jeff, where like you tell people they'll come to your booth, maybe someone you know, get to know, and they're like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And you're like, yeah, I'm surprised I got this. You know, I don't know how I got this collection, but yeah, I mean, you don't see this that often. You know, it might sound like you're kind of selling it up, but you're actually just talking. And then they, you know, go away at the con and come back a few hours later and they're like, so where's that thing? And you're like, yeah. And then they think that they might get it again, like, you know, next year, or, you know, they call you up or something, like, and then you're just like, no, dude, I meant it. Like, have you ever like had that experience?
I've had experiences where I tell people like, this is a good deal on a book. It's a tough book, you know, and they'll leave and they want to come back and get it, and somebody else bought it.
Because sometimes it's hard to
somebody recognize that.
When you hear it from Golden Age guys.
Yeah, and I don't try to upsell books. Like, I let the books sell themselves. I try to buy stuff that I think people want. And I'm like, either you want it or you don't. I don't try to push a book on anybody. Like, I'm like, look, either you want it or you don't. I'm not here to convince you, you know, to love this book. So, like, that's not usually my style. But yes, there's plenty of people who try to upsell. But then when they try to upsell something for a reason, because it needs upsell. Yeah. And just to touch base real quick on that modern conversation a little bit that we talked about. Mm-hmm. This is my problem with a little bit. I just want to talk about. I have a problem with the eras right now. Like, we have silver, we have gold, we have bronze. I get that. Copper is like ridiculously too short. That makes no sense to me why you have like a 5-year era, whatever, 6-7 year era. And then you have modern going for 30 years. Yeah. Okay. It's so stupid. And and like either copper needs to go up to like 93. And like I say, 93 then becomes Steel Age. I keep talking about that because Death of Superman, Death of Man of Steel, because you need to give another break because you're hurting the modern age by not giving another era to designate in between that and then continue again, because it needs its place, because it deserves its place. It deserves to have some type of value in what. It ends at like 89 or something, 91, 91, I think. I think it's 91. Yeah. It's like 84 to 91.
Well, you know, when I go on eBay I really do search moderns, and when you go on eBay and you click the category like collectibles, comics, and then it has Golden Age, Silver Age, and I click Modern Age, and the Modern Age is 1992 to the present, and I'm like, that's 30 years, man. I just want in the last 7 years, and then I'm getting like, ASM 375. Man, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not a modern. That's like I don't know. That's like 1994 or 95. I feel like that's way back.
It's a disservice. It's a disservice to comics. It needs another era so that era can appreciate, because really it should appreciate. There was important times and moments in comics there for people, whether you hated the 90s or not, or you felt like it destroyed the industry. Doesn't matter.
I actually have always referred to it as the indie era, because, like, to me, the most expensive books of that era up until recently was the Walking Dead one. And I go back to, like, if you go, Ninja Turtles is the best of my opinion. Ninja Turtles is the number one Copper Age book. First, it has to be. Of the modern, I don't know anymore. It was Walking Dead 1 first print, but now I'm thinking, is it Marco Djurkovic variant cover? The variant era, that should start something as well.
Yeah, I feel like if it's like 2011. When was the first Iron Man movie, the MCU? That's sort of like when variants off and the Venom craze, and it's just that's a distinct era, 2010, 2011, something like that. That to me is modern. 2011 till now is like a modern era. And you've got like Ultimate Fallout 4, sort of like the beginning of that era, and that's like the biggest book in the era, I think. And it's dominated by variants and MCU stuff. There's a lot of other stuff, but those are the two main things. Variants and MCU, those are the two main factors for a specific era of books. And previous to that, it's a completely different market, completely different things at play.
When did Superman die?
93, I think.
Yeah, so isn't it 93? And then beyond that, it's Who Cares era?
Well, now it's no longer Who Cares. You've got Gwen, you've got Miles, you've got first appearance.
I know.
First appearance of Venomized air conditioning is a big deal, apparently.
The problem with the modern is tough. There are legit keys that are going to be worth money, and already Army 4 is a legit key going forward. I've been thinking about it. We're paying $2,500 for that, the 9.8. I'm okay with that. That's a major key going forward. But the problem is the variants and the spec game and the con exclusives and all this other stuff.
Second print, third.
There's so much white noise drowning out the notes of the UF4 in there that it's hard to see. Whereas silver, it's just there's keys and there's titles and that's it. The modern stuff, there's so much peripheral stuff that's just clouding it. It's very tough to see what's the actual good investment books in there. But there are some. I think Saga #1 is good. UF4 is good. I mean, there's a lot of legit investment grade type books in the modern era, but there's so much white noise, it's tough to navigate that.
Yeah. No, and that's sorry.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the baseball card market in the late 90s, where even now, maybe bear with me here. My point is that with variants is a lot like there's so much stuff going on with baseball cards. Everybody has the chase cards and the select cards and the cards with the inserts, and then there gets to be all this other stuff around it that you kind of lose hope of what it is.
Well, in any collectibles market, for the long term, in order to retain the value and have a solid investment, you need to have organic collectability and not manufactured collectibility.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
In the 90s, when it's those first collector's edition issue, and they printed millions of them, and they did variant covers, and they did prisms, and it's manufactured collectability by the companies, and that's not organic. But like Ultimate Fallout 4, that book went quite a few years with very little attention. It was a $200, $300 book in 9.8. I remember it hit $500, long time. And it, they did their little Miles movie. There's a lot of fans of it now, and they're doing other stuff. That book has organic collectability. Yes, there's a lot of them out there. I get that, but it has organic collectability. But then you have some variant that they're pushing. It's like a manufactured collectability. It's not organic, and it's just like right off the shelf. People are complaining that their LCS is putting a $4 book on eBay for $100. That tells me that book does not have organic collectability. It was collectible the day it was printed. It was manufactured collectibility.
Correct.
You wouldn't invest in those.
Lewis can tell you a story of us buying a book in the comic shop, going to Chipotle, around the corner and us selling the book
Mhm.
while we were waiting for our extra guac.
Yeah.
I kid you not. We bought the books for $4, and I said, let's just put this shit on eBay right now. And we sold them for what, $50 a pop?
Something to that effect. Yeah. 40,
Right away. We took $16 and made $200. We got free guac. You know,
Well, that's not enough time to have anything be organic. You know what I mean?
it wasn't organic. We did
Right.
exactly the point. It's just something that, whether it be the apps, these people that push it, or whatever it is, it makes no sense. Why I think the golden age are the bonds and not the cryptos or anything else. Why they're the bonds? Because there's something about a bond is saying that, you know what, when it all comes down said to it, what Jeff said earlier, with the exception of the Bronze Age, the early Bronze Age, and I mean the very early Bronze Age, 1970 to 75 or 74 and a half, I say, when the paper was shit and the books were the best of by the big two, both DC and Marvel, best books I've ever done, hands down. All of them were the best stories, best writers, best artists. The golden age has always kept itself. It's never going to sink. Like we didn't, when the comic market crashed, the golden age didn't crash. It
Well,
just
the supply is so low. You don't need much demand to keep this golden age.
there are a lot less bonds. There are more bonds technically than there are equities.
Maybe the golden age market. Maybe we need a Reddit platform.
We do. We need the Wall Street boys to talk about the golden age.
Well, and we haven't even got.
GameStop goes to 250 overnight, and it's currently at 275 in China. I mean, in the Pacific Rim, I should say. It's currently at 275 in the Pacific Rim right now. So I made my money back then finally.
Well, I'm excited about paper collectible art from the 1940s. The more stuff I hear going forward, the more confident I am that this is just good, solid collectibles to own, because now we're moving into an era where people are buying non-fungible tokens. And I mean, what the hell? And you're buying ones and zeros where you're buying an image for hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you screenshot that image, it is the exact identical image. And it's, you know what I mean? It's like, that's
the
it's
crazy
thing. So I feel like the actual hard copy paper stuff is collectible now. Wait until it's obsolete. You know what I mean? And I think it'll be super cool and collectible then. People are always going to like to own stuff to hold in their hands. And we're moving further and further away from that in the digital age. I think that adds value. I mean, look at, like, people are spending a lot of money for VCRs, an old VCR. Like a VCR that's still one of those where you push it and the top lifts up on the VCR. Those are expensive now. They're not, because
Han shot first.
Analog.
Han shot. Greedo never got a shot off. You know.
Yeah, real quick on that, just to finish up on that modern, not to talk about modern again. My other point was going to be, if you collect modern books now, and you can collect modern books and do really well with that, like, that is 10 times harder than collecting vintage books. I give people who can do the hustle in modern books like 100% kudos and credit, because I cannot mentally, or right now, maybe at this point in my life, have the patience to deal with that. Like, I find it so overwhelmingly difficult that if you can do that, you can do vintage books, man. Like, if you can grind and hustle like that, then you can grind and hustle on the other end with less risk and probably, I mean, I'd like to think of more success and more maybe excitement for you, or not, or maybe it's just as exciting. But I'm just telling, I think it's so hard to do the modern game, man. It's so overwhelming every week to be up to date.
So that, yeah, I can't either. I can't keep up with
like it's a weekly, daily thing to have to figure out what's coming to the newsstand and in what version, what to get into. Like, I just don't even.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point for me personally. I pick up my modern books. I buy Kickstarters for my own personal reading collection. I collect these one writers. I enjoy their writing, and I like stupid Thor covers that I can order from one of those Scorpion or whatever it is, and I buy them when they're on pre-sale, because I don't want to be the guy after they're pre-sale paying $250 for a book I could have paid the variant and the Virgin and the other copy for there. Is that the original?
Yeah, Return of the Ninja or Revenge of the Ninja.
We have here. I have the original Last Dragon in Betamax sitting right there.
I've seen that.
The original Last Dragon in Betamax, signed by the Last Dragon himself,
Bruce Leroy.
Bruce Leroy, at where was he? Kansas City, Lewis? Did I see him?
Might have been.
Yeah. And I showed him up with the original Betamax cover of that. And I said, you need to sign this for me. He said, why? Because this was the movie that, you know, I can't get into it. To me, it's a top 10 film.
Oh, nice.
So,
Yeah, to answer, instead of just retyping exactly what Jeff just said, which I would pretty much agree with, when Imperious Flex asks, is there a bad GA buy? Look, here's sort of how you can judge it. Evaluation, but if there's stuff that's just not cool, then there's stuff that's cool, and then there's stuff that's super cool. If you think something is super cool, then other people probably are going to think it's super cool too. Probably a good buy. The cool stuff, hit and miss. It depends on who you're going to be selling it to. There'll be people that like it. If you think something is not cool, well, you've heard that it's a good buy. If you don't think it's cool at all, then don't. Just use your gut. If it's not cool, then it's not cool. And you can tell usually the stuff you like, if there's other people that are going to like it too. And if you really like something, other people are probably really going to like it too. But all of it's sort of a niche market. But there's a lot of junk in the golden age you see on eBay. Some of these guys just list all these listings in the middle of the night, and all these books starting bid at $1, and they'll have 150 golden age books, and none of them will even get a bid. So there is a bunch of crap too.
Yeah, I would say anything that's like a lot of times, like if they have a photo on it, and I just think like
anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, I would say comic. I was gonna say, or for
Jungles,
whatever reason,
there are your jungles. I know Guru doesn't like jungles, but Good Girl Art jungles. Some of them are very, 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 very valuable.
And I don't pass any judgment on for whatever the reason. They're not for me. Evidently, they're not for a lot of people. But like Westerns, in my view, maybe they catch on at some point, but. I mean, I guess that's a good entry point. They're pretty inexpensive, but
there are some Westerns that I see. Like there was one
Blaze Carson
buy it and somebody else did buy it. There are Westerns where I'll see one, and the cover is just such a cool piece of art, and I'll be like, wow, that is a really cool book, and it's a Western. Yeah. That's an exception to the rule, and I'll be like, that Western, that is a kick-ass cover, and it's just a wonderful piece of art. Then yes, I will buy it, but. Just saying, well, I think Westerns are going to take off. Let me go buy up a bunch of Westerns. Not a good idea. But if you come across a book that's just, wow, this is a Western, but it's just so awesome looking. It's such a great work of art. It's just such a good composition and color. Yeah, that's a good pickup then probably.
Right. There are your Westerns, your Blaze Carsons, your Rifleman. Your Rifleman is one issue, but your Tim Holtz, your there's a handful of every category, I should say.
I mean, some of the Ghost Rider stuff is cool. Even the non-Frazetta, the Dick Ayers stuff. That's
the Dick Ayers stuff's are reasonably priced still. That's the best part. You're getting great artwork for the Dick Ayers, Tim Holtz, Ghost Riders and stuff. But
it's Ghost Rider. It's not your traditional Western. We're not talking
right, exactly. So
you know what I'm saying? Like, there's only two. Yeah, there's only two photo cover Westerns you want. Only two, and that's the Rifleman and the one with Stanley's
Black Rider.
Black Rider on there. That's it. The rest of them
photo cover Westerns. Nobody needs a Gene Autry. There are too many of those to count.
No Gabby Hayes.
Gabby Hayes.
That's the one I always see on eBay. Nobody ever.
There's a lot of Gabby Hayes.
No Roy Rogers.
And your anthropomorphic animals are another one. I mean, as much as Mighty Mouse is cool and Andy Panda's cool, the Walter Lance line of just marinates out there.
Well, you can find
kind of like there are some pulps that I just won't even consider. I won't even consider them because they're like, I'll give you would you be interested in $10 an issue? I'm like, no, because they're from 1951, 52, 53. And they're just, I'm like, I wouldn't give, I don't want honestly, they take up too much space.
The cartoon stuff though has a lot of keys in it, and I'm
not saying Disney. Disney's different.
Yeah, but then there's also like the funny animals and the kitty titles. Some of those are sneaky good. Like they'll have a Hitler
there are a few,
cover or some some like decapitation cover that's done in it.
The bad rabbit, the one that this one with this rabbit, he shows up like every other one when you say that's the tough one. When it's during the war, almost any wartime book is valuable. If you ask me,
I might have a couple here. I'm gonna check.
That include the anthropomorphic animals, whether they're fighting Nazis or the Japanese. Those are some big names.
There is one anamorphic. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
There is one cover that I'm trying to remember what the title is. It's almost like it has these like cats or whatever. And there's like a blade coming, and they're like, well, it looks like the cat's trying to push. It's like a creepy.
Yeah.
I can't think. I'm trying to think of the title's name. It's there's that one that I always remember. That okay, it's kind of cool. But
there's something I don't want to piss people off, but I compare it to ammunition. There's your 22 long rifle caliber, which everybody can buy and sell, and then there's your 9mm 357 Magnum 45 that are really hard to find right now.
Like Knights has always got some cool stuff down here.
Stay away from your 22 long rifle ammunition. No need for it.
See, like here's
Sorry. Phoenix 1 is good. The first Smurfs is good. Little Lulu, just say no. Yeah, I agree with you on that. There's enough Little Lulus to satisfy a third world country right now.
Here's an animal one that is like a key that's just inappropriate that they did. I can't find the others, but it's the one I have here. I mean, you see with the ha. You know, you see what they did there. I mean, that's just like an unexpected.
Yep.
You know,
there's your diamond in a rough here and there, and the gold.
But westerns don't have that. You know what I'm saying?
There are a few early 1949 westerns that are like keys because of who's in it, or who drew it, or what's there. Those are the early Blaze Carsons. Your early Black Riders are like the first Gil Kane works, first covers. Those where you buy the artists more than you buy the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the westerns have like Western romance, good girl themes. Yeah, they're cool.
Cowpuncher and
some of them like the artist. Yeah, like a Matt Baker, like a
Straight Arrow. I was thinking Frazetta Straight Arrows and
stuff like that.
Matt Bakers and stuff. There are, but like every era, there is one. The only one that there isn't is the photo covers, with the exception of that Marilyn Monroe Miss America. Of all those, there are some innuendo ones that I think are going to pick up from like 1951, 52 that have like a teenagers that are out on a date and one girl's licking ice cream and he's looking down at her saying, and it says, I bet he can't wait for what's for his ice cream later. I can't, and it's just our dirty minds that make us say we're in. Okay, that's good. But there are a bunch of those. But like your Looney Tunes, I mean, if you want to get into it, but don't get into it for the money. For now, well, we're talking in 2041. We don't know. Little Lulu could be the one that everybody wants.
If you like that stuff, and most of it's dirt cheap compared to other books in all eras, so you can pick it up for fun and not spend a lot. If you really want to make some money and some investments, I would just, and I don't do this, so take it with a grain of salt, I would stick to Disney stuff. That stuff, the early Mickey Mouse, Daffy Duck, Donald Duck.
The 1940s, the 1946 and before Disney stuff, you won't find much of that cheap right now, and especially 41, 42 era of the Mickey, Dumbo, or anything that's been just mentioned at all. The Peter Pan, any of those early works of the Disney is huge. But there it is. What's that one, Lewis?
Yeah, that's real cool.
Yeah, it's gonna say it's kind of a. That's the book I referenced just a minute ago, where it's kind of cool. I mean, again, it has cartoon characters, but yeah, it adds a little bit of creepy. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that of The Simpsons. What's the crust? What's the cartoon that they're always watching? You know,
Itchy and Scratchy.
Itchy and Scratchy. There you go. So,
do you have that book?
That makes sense.
I don't have this one. I've seen it.
Yeah,
I don't even know the book.
Yeah, before. But if
I
I
don't
saw that, I would
or
buy Invitation because I guarantee that's definitely a good one. Yeah, I would buy that.
that Rib Tickler. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool.
So,
And Knights has this esoteric stuff that I would.
he has his Astro Boy. You know, Astro Boy is actually very popular too. So,
You know, I think the '80s cartoon properties are decent investments because of the sentimental value.
I call the Hasbro properties is my new name for them now because of the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, as funny as it is, I just talked. I went to the shop today, to both shops downtown, because they wanted me to go look at a bunch of comics that they thought were very rare. They were like those Wolverine Weapon X ones. They're not rare at all. I think he says again, but I go back there and I says, "Is that 5 original Snake Mountain still in the box?" Yeah. I mean, this guy's got any He-Man, any Thundercats toy, everything. This guy's got 4 or 5 of the Millennium. These guys down here have everything, except for the Bigfoot from 1977 that I need to complete my collection. That's their one job. That and a 1962 Rebel Toys bazooka with the working spring. That's the other thing I'm looking for. Those are the only 2 toys I need to finish that run. But the comic book world, the one thing I want, like when you have dealers that don't know what they're doing, I'm kind of like a guy people talk to here in town, not for our big comic shop, but the other ones will call me. The pawn shops will say, "Hey, is this worth anything?" I'm like, or if they get upset when they sell something for like $60, like a Miss Marvel 1 Bronze Age. And I said, "What do you have into it? $1? Then you won. Don't worry about it." "Oh, but I see it on eBay for this." I'm like, "Well, you didn't sell it on eBay, and you didn't have to ship it. You didn't have to pack it. You sold it in your shop. You win." Micronauts. There's a good example. I actually was joking with somebody how much I love Shogun. The Shogun comics are so good. They are so far and away. One of my highlights of my youth was reading Shogun. Was getting those books from the older kids and me trading away whatever they wanted for baseball cards for the Shoguns or Machine Man or Micronauts. Freak, even the Eternals. I read all those things. I was into that. I wasn't into the normal. I hated Spider-Man until Miles Morales. I still think Peter Parker was a bitch, to be honest with you. I still say Miles Morales is a better Spider-Man than Peter Parker ever was. I never liked Peter Parker. I thought he was a bitch. Couldn't get laid. It was a problem. But, it's a fact. It's true. So there we go. I love seeing some of the high-grade Dells. Yeah, there are some Dells, especially for me. I found a bunch of Tarzan Dells that are going for really high prices by some guys that want to pay for them. The Tarzan Dell early ones, the first early Tarzan Dells. But
I see like Dells and Disney stuff on Heritage all the time, and I watch it and I see these prices, and it's sort of a running joke because Mrs. DS is sitting there and she's not watching it, and I'm like, all right, coming up next is this 4-color whatever in a 8.0. What do you think it's going to sell for? And we just guess, and it's just like a crapshoot. But these things sell. Sometimes one will sell for $1,100, and sometimes one sells for $250. There's a market for that stuff, but it's just too inconsistent for me, and I can't tell the difference between one and the other as to what's going to be a good one. So I just stay away from that entirely because I can't figure it out. Same with Good Girl art. I know the big ones if I see them, but I can't figure out if a Good Girl cover or a romance cover. I can't figure out when I see one, is that going to be a good one or not? I just stay away from it. I have no feel for the romance stuff. I know the big keys because I see people show them off and I see the prices, but when you see random romance, I cannot figure out which ones are good and which ones aren't. I have no eye for the romance or the Good Girl art for the most part. So I just stay away from it. So you got to get comfortable with something, and something that you personally like and you can invest emotion into it, and then get to know that market, and you can do well picking up stuff, making good decisions and stuff. But stay out of stuff that you don't have an eye for. Not everybody has an eye for everything.
I don't know if Pokemon even made a comic.
I know we're kind of getting later in the show, so I don't want to go completely off topic. I'm just throwing this out there. What do you guys ever think? Some even the golden age, 40s, 50s. I always kind of wonder if magazine format, if that will ever catch on significantly. I don't think it'll ever be what comics are, but you see some, different magazine formats, especially from the 70s.
They're huge.
You have you have the famous, basic. Yeah, I was kind of wondering if
the biggest thing that will help that market is if somebody comes up with a decent
slab.
Exactly, like a slab.
Same thing with pulp. It's the same thing. By the way, that Battle of the Planets you just showed Knights I have.
You need third-party grading and collectibles. Look, comic books, if you look at them over the decades, when CGC came out and in the first few years, and now we have third-party grading, that's a huge boost to the comic book collectible market. And the same thing happened with coins. The same thing happened with baseball cards when PSA card shots.
Games.
And magazines, only CGC grades them, and their holders suck. And they just, there's not, until you have third-party grading, a collectible like a paper thing is not going to reach the next level. So I think that's the main thing holding back the magazine market, because I know there's a lot of guys that like the Warrens.
I collect every Warren. I've got Creepy and Eerie's, almost all of that run. I even in Lewis, you see me buy the Savage Tales one anytime I find one.
Right.
I buy one.
So
I've been buying them for years. I've been buying Creepies, Eerie's.
Some of the stuff that I like,
in the last 10.
50s,
First 10 and last 10 of each one.
with like the Universal monsters, oftentimes were on
I
the
have
cover
all
of
those too,
the
yeah.
magazine.
Yeah,
I always
I
thought
think they're good.
First Darth Vader magazine cover. First.
Wait, so I'm confused. So so there is grading now on magazines.
Only
so we
CGC.
see that. So what? I mean, there is grading, and
And
if they were the
skyrocketed
only
in
place,
value.
and we're still not seeing them come through. It's not like there's three places, and we're not sure where
Right.
they're going. There's one place and they're not coming through. What is it going to take for magazines to make a leap? Like I have a huge magazine collection here. I do.
Yeah.
I have some of the horror monster stuff that's like early 60s, like really
Yeah.
nice shape.
that's
I'm
cool.
not selling them yet because
Same here.
I
got
might as well
9.2s,
wait. And they're like
9.4s.
freaking
9.6s.
8.5, 9.0s, 9.4. I mean, they're
Well, yeah,
beautiful.
Only-
Over the
only
top.
You
But why?
see grading them, and they have crappy holders. They have long turnarounds. A lot of people are not sending them in. They're not showing up on auctions very often.
But
They're not
that's what we're saying.
coming up-
Why? What's it going to take to have people
I
send
honestly
them in?
think that market recently, I would say the last 4 months, I have dealt with people that want to buy a lot of my Creepies and Eerie's.
But that's
they're
like the most common. Creepy and Eerie's.
Well, that's the thing. The Warren Publishing of the Creepy and Eerie, the Frazetta covers, the early ones, whether it be the vampire, the dinosaur, the gargoyle over the guy. I've been offered, what were you willing to sell this one for? But nothing like I have with the Savage Tales. That's one thing that in the last month where people want to take my, if you look it up right now, raw copies that people are saying are 6.5s or higher are going for $300 to $500 easily right now on eBay. At least a few of them have been.
So it's the character then, because you have Conan
It's
and Vampirilla.
Conan, or Savage Tales. Vampirilla 1. Vampirilla 12 is a huge one. The crossover between the Bloodlust of Dracula, there are, and the works inside of it are by far, but I think, see, the purists like Ronald Dowling and guys like that collect the magazines as a whole were so against the slabbing of them because the cover, that's something that it's weird about those books. The better shit and better art and better, the real story is inside. And sometimes it's the letter to the editor in 1966 by a 14-year-old guy by the name of Bernie Wrightson, who drew a picture just to get recognized by Fran Frazetta. That book just flew recently because whether it be us on here showing it or a bunch of other people asking me about it, I'm like, this is it. This is known as the first Bernie Wrightson published work. It's a letter to the editor of Warren magazine to Frank Frazetta, says, hey, I'm a big fan. And that's it. Or whether it be the It's Jim Steranko's only Warren publication. Very popular now. The Erie Frazetta. I mean, first of all, they didn't retain their value because we didn't get bags and boards for them until about 10 years ago. You got to remember that.
It's just not
We
a lot.
didn't have bags and boards for them that would retain. We had poly bags that we would manufacture by taking, like I used to take the Generation 2 CGC when I first joined CGC in the early 2000s to 2006, I think, was the time they first started putting them in bags when they shipped them back to you. And they were really thick, like big bags. I used to put my magazines in those 2 at a time, whether it be my Monsters Unlimited or my Monsters magazine with Darth Vader on the cover, and I still have them all.
Cool. That's a cool one.
Yeah, but
It's crazy,
people
you know? That's a good one. First Bernie Wright.
People want to display their art. I don't display this because it looks like crap in this thing. It's
Yeah.
look for art. People don't get why CGC slabs are so popular. Why do you have to slab it? Look, people like to have their art framed, and it's like it's art, and you want a good frame. And this is a shitty ass display piece. It's this rickety, crappy looking like crap. I don't know. I just feel like if there's a better way.
What you're saying is you don't. What you're saying is you don't like that case.
So you're saying so magazines aren't popular because of the holder?
Well, I think they're popular.
Same
But
reason
nobody's going to pay a lot of money. It will boost the market for them monetarily. They're popular. You put them on eBay, they'll all sell. Everything.
Yeah, but they sell for shit.
Yeah, because
Excuse me for swearing, guys.
There's not a way to
Like,
delineate the values of a particular book because not a lot of them get slabbed. People don't want to slab them. They don't make good display pieces right now. I think that really is hurting it. It sounds like a shallow, unimportant reason, but I mean, look what the grading market did for comics when CGC came in, and now look how much people like the new case. I mean, grading revolutionized comics, and
but you can
so why
grade
don't we
them
do
now.
the same for magazines? Yeah, they're grading them, but I mean,
It's just
if
the-
one
it's
company
nobody-
this crappy
We
holder,
need a second company, and I believe competition would make them improve their slab. And
I
it's
mean,
the same.
look at this. They're still taping the labels to the top.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
are. I mean, I have mine,
it's
and
no-
it's a Generation 2 slab. I paid a Generation 4 price for.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine that that's the reason that people aren't submitting them and they're not
Yeah.
selling is because people can't grade. Will only be one grading company. They don't like the holder. I feel if people want the book, they'll
Graded
buy
2
the
years
book.
ago. This is this.
I think
This is
you're
less
right.
than 2 years old. It still has tape on the outside.
I
What
think
is
it's
that?
just the case to where people just have to get more educated on the books, on the magazines to recognize that, hey, there, it's like another rabbit hole to go down that, hey, there is some great stuff there. I think it just needs a spark, right? It just needs some spark on a dry tender to take off.
But nobody
I mean,
buys them yet. 'Cause
That's
they
all.
still-
If you would have looked like 10 years ago and thought
I'm
like,
still paying
hey,
$1 a piece. When I buy it.
Do you think it'll be like the silver bronze? It's gonna have
Yeah.
to be a key moment in it, not so much the cover, like we were just talking
Yeah.
about gold.
I think that would help.
Well, the Savage Sword of Conan, yeah. I kind of think the Savage Sword of Conan is a good example. I think we don't know much about the Khazar.
Like Foom. Look at Foom. Foom's selling, but only because of like certain key moments in it.
Yeah, Foom's quirky because you get like Foom is a Stanley kind of a driven thing right now. I mean, it's I do like Fooms though. But like I have a lot of
I think the universal
really rare art show or convention programs, right? That I have a ton of. I have a box of them. Some of the earliest first known or weird stuff. And I've asked CGC, have you ever graded this? And they're like, we don't even know what it is. And I'm like, well, it's an art show from 1978 that features Mike Kaluta, Barry Windsor-Smith, and Wrightson, and all of the artwork inside, and it's got pictures of everybody dressing like Red Sonja. It's also Howard. When I showed it to Howard Chaykin, he's like, he goes, that was my first professional convention. I'll pay you for that. That kind of a thing. Or first time I ever went to one of those conventions that I've ever mentioned. I think we need the second grading company. We need CBCS, if they're the second grading company, you made a really nice slab recently. Do the same for the magazine, and maybe the slab will be better, because I think DS is right. Maybe I don't like to. I would love to submit those because they're all in the high nines, and I want to preserve them any which way I can. But I don't like paying $35 per for a book that I might be able to sell for $100 at the best, and I've got to get them pressed first. And
What's
I
the
have a
complaint?
great magazine presser. I mean, yes, some of them are going to be worth hundreds of dollars to the right guy, to the right person, but it's not like currency. Like this is what I would say: Bronze Age books, the same era in a CGC slab that are comics, are almost currency at this point. We know if I tell you 9/8 Werewolf by Night number 32, you know what price that's going to be at within a couple of $1,000. You're right on the nose. If I tell you a creepy number 9 in a 9/8, what is it? There's no known place to look for that.
But it could be the flip though. It could just simply be, hey, I'm CGC. Until I see a level of demand, I'm not necessarily interested in putting a lot of investment in a new slab and, really
I've
putting
pushed
a lot of
it
effort into that. So it's like a chicken and egg thing. I mean, I just tend to think like there's a lot of great stuff there. It just hasn't yet caught on in popularity. And if I'm sitting on some of those books, I'd rather just do what Guru's doing. I'd rather just sit on them than sell them for the.
Yeah, but it's not all like why
I'm
it's
sitting on them.
taken off. It's not like you need a bunch of more collectors who like the stuff. You need something that's going to generate money coming into it. And slabbing and certifying with a nice holder and a nice looking display piece will bring in people who want to invest and flip it. And that will generate a lot more of it on the market, a lot more interest and a lot more attention. It's not just a good slab, all of a sudden people like magazines. No, but a good, solid, competitive holder service out there for magazines in the industry like we have for comics will get people like me to look at magazines and saying, ooh, maybe I can flip these. This could be a highest graded. I can get this in a nice case. It's just, it will bring other people who don't want to collect it into the market to bring money, and it will give it more attention and interest. It's not like all of a sudden people are going to start liking magazines, but it will bring a lot of other peripheral type of people in that will generate the boost for it. And I really feel like if CBCS and CGC both do magazines and have rock solid holders like their current comic book holder quality, it will give a boost to magazines. Are they ever going to be as popular as comics? Probably not. But I'm telling you, it will indefinitely boost them without question. I'm telling you, because people like you and me, Jeff, will buy magazines, will get them graded, and the turnaround time and the cost for grading them and the holder sucks. It's just, it doesn't seem like it's worth my time. I rather.
But again, if the magazines had enough or more value, you would look at the $35 and be like, oh, that's nothing. If it was a $500 book or $800 book, it'd be $35 is nothing. But because nobody gives a damn enough of them to spend money, you're like, $35 is way too much money. Because I'll tell you right now, I have never. How many times do you guys get asked for key books? You guys probably get DM'd all the time for key books, right? When was the last time you got DM'd? Hey, do you have this magazine?
Right. Savage Tales, when I get asked. I showed it on the comic book thing on that.
Sure, I get that. Savage Tales one, sure. I'm just talking about like exactly. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I never get that, and I would, I'm just saying that's what I'm saying. I don't even get asked.
I think it's you need more interest, and then as the interest grows, the grading companies take notice, and then more interest. It's a slow going, but once it gets going, it can really take off like any collectibles market.
I agree. There's a lot to love about him. I really do think so.
I love the Universal monsters, the Universal, monsters back from like the 50s and 60s. I mean, I love some of those magazines that they're in. I think they're awesome. So
they are good. The Lon Chaney appearance on the first one, I've seen the guys on the CGC. That's the thing. The CGC website guys that sell those things, like Ronald Dowling and those guys that have all those magazines and buckets of them. They say all the time, it's just a matter of time. A good example of that is Vampirella. What if there is a Vampirella? What if they do a true Vampirella? I mean, I don't know if today's society is ready for that anymore.
I mean, do you think grading
like a
slabbing
penis? So
if we start slabbing and grading pulps, I think that will boost the market
for sure.
ultimately
Pulps is-
based on how many people are into the thing. But if you started a
I
legit
gotta talk to Jeff.
quality grading, it boosts the market. If they start grading pulps, all of them, it will boost that market. If they do that with magazines, it will boost the market. It's different levels for everything, and maybe the grading companies aren't doing it because there's just not enough initial interest anyway. But I don't know how you get them to be popular, but I know that grading in a good holder, people like a good frame for their art, that will boost any market of this stuff from where it is initially.
The one thing about pulps that I've mentioned to CGC why I want them to do it, but how I want them to grade them is by cover only with back cover and page counting. But it is different because you can't, and as good as these guys are, there are 128 pages per pulp on average. And you can't really get between the pages. If you ever try to read a pulp, and Jeff, you're probably going to start doing this, and realize that you can't get through 5 pages without the next 10 sticking. It's just the error of what it is. It's just a shit paper. So they should be graded based on cover alone and completion. And that's the hardest part because I always say the most expensive comic is the guy who's got an all stories.
Yeah,
10,
Tarzan, the first
Tarzan.
Tarzan.
Who's got a full Tarzan in a high grade will outdo the Action Comics 1 eventually because there's not going to be 7 of them. There are less than 10 known to exist complete.
Well, that's another thing.
1912.
That's a huge claim.
But it says there are less than 10
Huge
known
claim.
to exist. This is from Bookery's guide.
Scarcity doesn't mean value, man.
Right,
As
but
a
you're talking
demand.
about Tarzan, who predates Superman by 20 some odd years.
I'm talking about
over
Tarzan.
100 years old, less than 10 to exist. If you have one, and if it was graded really high, I don't know. I'm not going to say it's going to rival the 9.0 Superman 3.0. I'm saying a book of that caliber, it will break the #1 record eventually if somebody thinks about it and wants to know true scarcity of pop culture. But here's the thing with pulps. Most of those characters are public domain. So that turns into a big problem as well.
Yeah, well, look,
First
maybe
Conan,
holders and grading, maybe that won't
Retail
revolutionize
32.
the industry, but CGC is grading movie posters, okay, concert posters. I mean, they're grading stuff that doesn't have huge markets. I mean, come on, they can come up with a good magazine holder because that appeals to comic collectors. I mean, you can't even be grading freaking concert posters. How many concert
But have
posters?
you seen the concert posters? They're not that nice, that grading thing either. It's just flat with the same thing, tab, right? How nice is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
It's not
I
that
know,
nice.
so just make some good holders. I mean, this is the company that does it. Just make some good holders, I think. And
What's it-
Oh, that Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Just to get
Yeah,
going.
But what would
Yeah.
constitute a good holder for you on a magazine? What is it missing? Because you like the slabs for comics, right? Do you like the
Well,
holder?
in the magazine, I like the comic slabs. First of all, they tape the label to the top. That looks hokey. And then the label inside is just a piece of paper that's like leaning in that big empty plastic
It
space.
does lean. It
So you're
does
saying
lean.
because it's not also
in this empty
This
space.
was graded less than a year
And then
ago.
a sticker on top. Everybody hates that. It's so hokey, man. A sticker on top. Are you kidding me? And then it's flimsy. It's
And it
just
shakes, and it's not really secure, and it's barely.
is it shake because it's such a wide span of plastic?
It is.
Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it. They don't. The inner well is there,
Uh-huh.
but it's like everything else about it is. It's like a 2006 slab, but it was done in 2020.
Gotcha.
they
So
never updated the magazine slabs when it's the exact same as the comic. Remember the CGC? It's a very small era of CGC comic slabs. Where it was really
2006.
thick and it was flat all the way down pretty much. And it was
2006.
flimsy and it was really thick and like thin plat. It was those.
It's 2001.
They came up with both of them. And then the comic one they've changed, the magazine one they've just kept that style all the time. I think it would help. I don't know. I think it would help. People see a nice solid copy that somebody owns show up on Instagram, and then you have a census. There's some on Heritage. People show it all. It would get people more interested. I would be more interested in them. That Web of Horror, I love that book. I don't display that book because it looks like crap. I mean, it's not a fun thing to display. I see Gizmo over there.
Yeah, Yeah, he's got like a ticker tape of stuff constantly streaming down there. You know.
Well, we're probably going to expand on this next week. But we have been hitting this. We're almost at our 2.5 hour mark. So I want to, first of all, does anybody have anything they want to plug real fast? Knights, you put yourself on mute.
The video game market went crazy when they started implementing the grading.
Slab, the
Same
grading.
with toys really took up. People are comfortable dumping their money when there's some kind of
You can
regulated
equate it to currency. Yeah.
safe. It's safe. I don't know why it hasn't taken off from magazines. You know, I
There's
don't
just
think
not enough.
There's not enough demand yet. But save your magazines. They're better inside. Read your Warrens. You saw me. I take them out of their poly bags. Actually, those are the one books I actually move around the most in my collection. I move them from new bags a lot. Anytime I find new bags for magazines, I do. But I want to thank everybody for showing up. Thank
just
you.
got this.
Did you get a card with it too?
No,
No, that's Jim Lee's X-Men. We're not going to get into it.
it's awesome.
It is.
You want to have that feeling of reading a new comic like you did in the 80s.
I want to get the Battlestar Galactica version by Walt Simonson
Freaking
version
awesome.
of the IDW because that's really good. That's good. It is. That's why I want the
Oh,
Battlestar Galactica.
Damn.
That's pretty
Because
sweet.
if you ask me, here's something here. What Bronze Age book do I think is the best artwork in it by anybody? And I'm a biggest Thor guy you could find, especially if you've seen it. Just check out the artwork inside of Battlestar Galactica. It's so sick. It's not even funny. It's so
Wow.
way better than anything else. But again, it's 10 years before that. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank the whole crew and everything else. We hung around for 2.5 hours. We did a good job. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, DS. Thank you, Jeff at Golden Age Guru. Thank you, Mike and Knight. And thank you all right there for being a friend. Have a good night.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and